Oh, Becky's nodding yes. Okay,
We
great.
are.
Okay. All right, and then all 5 board members are here. Okay. All right, so we are going to reconvene to open session. We have no action to report from closed session, but we will go back into closed session after our regular meeting. So we have 2 meetings. We have a special and a regular meeting to attend to right now. We need to take action on our special agenda item. It's 4.1. So we are going to move to that. It is a request, a classified requesting leave of absence. So if anybody has any questions for Becky, now would be the time. Okay. If not, can I ask for a motion for this action item?
I move that we approve this action item.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Anna?
Okay, Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
and Trustee Paoli.
Yes.
Okay, so that was our only item on our special agenda. So we would like to adjourn that meeting now. So if I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting
I move to adjourn.
and a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, we have closed the special meeting of November 12th. So we will continue on. We are going to ask if there's any public participation on non-agenda items. And there,
I see none.
okay. All right, thank you, Anna. All right, so I will ask for approval of the agenda. I haven't heard of anything that needs to get moved or tabled. Anything come in the last few minutes? Okay. All right, so then I'll just ask for an approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, I will turn it over for the patriotic exercise for Trustee Paoli.
So I was inspired by a program that's on the California Department of Education called the Civic Engagement Award. It proves a state seal, and it's kind of an engagement program that there was a press release back in September, and of course COVID's taken over, so all this fun stuff is not being discussed. But what I was inspired by the program was that it was to engage students to work together productively, demonstrate a competence of understanding the U.S. and the California constitutions, the functions of the government, participate in civic engagement projects, demonstrate civic knowledge and skills and self-reflection, and exhibit character traits. And I know we have political clubs at the high school, but it would be really cool to either incorporate this within the 2 groups so they could meet up and see how they can do community events together and learn how similar they are and what they want in their government, like our community members that put the flags up for Veterans Day. So I just wanted to close with a quote from Franklin D. Roosevelt. He says, "We cannot always build a future for our youth, but we can always build our youth for the future."
Thank you. All right.
We do have one public comment on non-agenda items. I don't know if you're able to take that at this time.
Because there's a 30-second lag on YouTube, I would just encourage us to take that.
Okay.
Okay. Shall I read it as it's in email format?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's from Gabriel Moroney, and his comment was, "I really do not appreciate the format that the board has chosen for these meetings. It is bad enough that we are unable to make comment in person, yet there is further separation of understanding in that the only way comments can be submitted is by email. This goes against the spirit of the Brown Act. Gabriel Quinn Maroney.
Thank you very much for your email. We will take it under advisement. Thank you. All right, so acknowledgements number 5. I'm going to turn that over to you, Becky.
So these are for our high school FFA program. Thank you to Bailey Lane Landscape for a $250 donation, Hare Creek Nursery and Saw Shop for a $250 donation, Noyo Trawlers Association for a $500 donation, another $500 donation from an anonymous donor to buy FFA members their own FFA jackets, and the Ukiah Valley Athletic Club for helping at the FFA drive-through movie night, which I heard was a great success. So thank you to all. And can I do one impromptu acknowledgement?
Of course.
I just would like to acknowledge Anna Russell. Anna is moving on to a great big district in the Bay Area, and I just want to publicly thank her for everything that she's done for us. She's taken care of me personally on so many levels, and she's taken care of so many of our district staff and our district kiddos behind the scenes that people don't even recognize. So Anna, we wish you all the best in your new endeavors, and we know that we're going to come visit you, so you are not getting away.
Thank you, Anna, for all your dedication to us. We will definitely miss you, but excited for you too.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we'll move on to communication. I'll go ahead and start because we do have some. I received an email from the lay leader of the Evergreen Church, and they wanted to reach out and see what they could do to help families with the distance learning. And I forwarded or responded to that email and CC'd the site principals because they're the ones with the boots on the ground and might have some ideas. So I put the lay leader in touch with the site. Tina Rose has also included us in correspondence that she's had with county officials. And we received an email from that's not on, these are ones that are not on part of the public comment tonight, from Becky Ellis and Leanne Burkwaw. And we also received a letter from Christy Tangway, and all 3 of those were regarding the opening of school. So if anyone else received any other that were not considered part of, that will not be read as public comment. Diana?
I'm thinking everyone else is on this, or maybe it's just me, but there's a representative, and I spoke about this, I think last month or maybe September, Laurel Green. Did anyone get an email from Laurel Green from CSBA? This is our region-wide individual that's going to help us with it's the PACER. They called it the PACER. I think Mary and I went to a MIG and they talked about getting this division to help with rural districts so that we have a bridge between us and Sacramento. So there's going to be a Zoom meeting November 18th at 11 a.m., which is just next week. And they were just going to kind of meet and greet, but I can't tell who else was listed for the email. So if you want the information, I can forward it to you.
Yeah, I got that too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got it too. Sorry, I can't go to that meeting. But I should have asked if anybody else could go.
I'm going to go.
Great. Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
Anybody else receive any additional communication or?
I think just all the same ones that we all got.
Okay.
For the public comment.
All right. So we are moving to public participation on agenda items. We have received several letters and we have those available, and then Anna may be receiving some more even as we're reading. I'm going to read this statement just to be cognizant of it, and then we will decide if we're okay with extending it. But members of the public may take this opportunity to comment on agenda items per board bylaw 9322. Under the requirements of the Brown Act and open meeting laws, members of the community wishing to address on an agenda item may do so at this time. A 3-minute time slot for each speaker in our case, email on all items, and the total time for the public input on each item is limited to 20 minutes. And I believe that we are dealing with a very important and sensitive topic. And I do want to acknowledge all of the people that are taking the time to write into us. And so I believe we should extend that time. And I don't know if the board wants to put a time limit on it, or say we're going to read for an hour, or attend to all letters, or I just want to kind of throw that. We can't meet and discuss this ahead of time, so we have to do it now. But
can we maybe, there are, I think the last time I looked at it, there were 20, can we do our math, 20 letters? There might even be more. If we did 3 minutes, can we double the time and then assess at that point if if we're almost done, or because a lot of the letters probably won't be read and complete because we're going to keep it at 3 minutes, or are we going to reduce it down to 2 and try to get more letters in?
I think the difficulty is if you start reading a letter and you get to 2 minutes and you stop reading the letter. I don't know if that's effective. If it's 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes. There are a lot. We could look at the letters in themes and start reading. You could read them all and just do it, and however the time goes, and we could revisit it if we go beyond, if you want to put a time limit on it and say, okay, if we go beyond this amount of time, then we're going to stop wherever we are, or we're going to read all of them. And if this meeting goes past 10 o'clock, you have to stop and vote to extend the meeting.
So is there any more than 20, Anna? Is that still what we're at?
There are 26 pages of letters. I'm not sure of the exact count of letters. And I have sorted them into high school, elementary, and then there's the full packet of every single letter as well, if you choose to go that route.
Okay, any other comments on the time constraints or having any at all?
Well, I think that because, as you mentioned, it's a very sensitive subject and it means a lot to everyone on every side, that really everybody's voices should be heard, and that's what we're here for. So I would be in favor of listening to or reading all of them.
Okay. Well, then let's get started if anybody else doesn't have a high objection to that. Okay. All right. Because my voice will get to Charlie Brown at some point, people won't. Diana, would you be okay if we switched back and forth to try to break up the...
Yes, just let me know which we'll
just go back and... Okay. Well, I think we should go in order. I think in the way they came.
But because I'm looking, I see like Anna
public comment, all not sorted.
Okay.
That's the way they came in. So
yeah, that's the time order of the letters as they arrived.
Do you see it, Diana?
Not yet, because I saw it earlier, but I'm thinking I'm seeing it. Okay, public. There's how many?
It says public, all not sorted.
Okay, so it's probably the last one for me. Public, not sorted. Okay, got it. Okay, better get my tea.
Okay. All right. And then I'm going to... Okay, here we go. So this is from Rhonda and Michael Wasco. Administration and board members, we would like to thank you for all your hard work everyone is doing to get the school back open. We truly appreciate all that you do, and we know that the back to school plan will never be a one size fits all. That being said, we feel like we need to communicate our distaste for the current high school plan with a 2-hour busing break in the middle of the morning. It is our understanding that the middle school will be mirroring the 2-hour busing break in mid-morning as well. However, we understand that their schedule is not quite worked out yet, but we wanted to get this email out before the board meeting next week. We are anxiously awaiting for the rollout of the middle school bell schedule, for lack of a better terminology. We unfamiliar with the elementary school bell schedule as we do not have a student at that grade level. We also understand that the normal school hours are from 8:30 to 3:30 with minor adjustments for elementary and middle school. And you as administration/board have every right to utilize this time as you see fit. We feel like Having the students busing for up to 4 hours, depending on pickup and drop off time, to only be on campus for an hour plus 20, then expected to be back to a learning mindset for 3 hours in the afternoon, does not set up a constructive or positive learning experience. We can read through many health orders on the state of California, Mendocino County, and CDC websites, and do not find any orders that prevent students from returning to the school at a higher capacity and longer time than your model is providing. We think the money spent on transportation alone, not to mention cleaning costs and logistics of opening the campus, is a complete waste of resources for an hour and 20-minute block of an online campus, of campus learning. We understand the concern of facility and exposure, but with mask mandates, hand washing station, and the current health orders regarding social distancing, there is no more risk of opening the schools than there is to going to the grocery store. I would like to pose this question to any faculty member who is not willing to teach our students. Are you shopping for groceries? If social distancing, proper hygiene, and mask wearing is maintained, our teachers are not at risk and should be willing to return to their jobs. As you know, all of the guidelines are set up for the protection of all. This plan of AB group weekly for only an hour plus 20 minutes is ridiculous. We understand the difficult situation you are in trying to provide adequate solutions for all families and teachers, and we do not envy those in the power positions at all. We actually sympathize with you and know you are working diligently to come up with a solution. We thought one of the important issues to reopening was to make it easier for working families, and this does not do that. We have heard all along that helping working families is a top priority, and this plan makes it worse. Secondly, we know many high school students who are working in the afternoon to help support their families during this difficult time. Of course, we don't think this should be the responsibility of high school age students to support their families, but expecting these students to give up their jobs in order to be online for distance learning in the afternoon is not helping working parents. Many of these students are trying to keep up with their own school while providing support and childcare for their younger siblings, as their parents are trying to maintain their jobs. Nothing about this reopening plan supports the working parent or the students and the needs of the families in our community. Under no circumstances do we feel school should be utilized as childcare, but we know many families in our community rely on the school to provide a safe place for their students during working hours. Attendance is already problematic for many families with students in the current schedule of 9 to 1:30. We know the district is struggling with attendance, especially in middle school and high school, and we feel the school is setting themselves and their students up for failure, expecting students to take a 2-hour mid-morning break followed by 3 hours of afternoon distance learning. How many students do you realistically see logging back in from 12:30 to 3:30 after 1 hour plus 20 minutes of instruction in the morning and then a 2-hour break? I will add, personally in our home, our high school student has found joy in volunteering at the food bank 3 days a week from 1:45 to 4. This is one of the only times she gets out of the house and is in the community, and she has found great joy in serving the community. On this new schedule, she has 2-hour mid-morning of just downtime, and she will no longer be able to volunteer after school. This also limits her ability to get a job, which she has also been searching for. Are these priorities that should be put above school? Absolutely not. However, these are issues our family is personally facing with this bizarre 2-hour break from 10:30 to 12:30. With schools opening all over California, many hosting their entire population of students on campus for the entire day, we find it very difficult to wrap our mind around this was the best solution for our faculty and students. We could support the previous opening plans you had in place, although still not ideal. We do not understand how any of you consider this the best plan for reopening our schools. As you know, we don't come to the table with a complaint without a solution offered. So here is what we think should be a better solution than having a 2-hour bus break. Of course, we want to reiterate that we know there is not a one-size-fits-all. These are merely suggestions. Currently, the school district is running internet cafes for a lack of a better terminology. Following the high school's current plan, instead of busing after the students have their first period class, why couldn't the school provide internet cafes around campus where students could move to their first class after their first class for the remainder of their distance learning? The students should have assigned internet cafes based on their classes. After distance learning is over, 1:30 for high school, the kids can be bused home. These students could still be left in their pods, but spread out more, so not to be talking over each other or loudly disrupting other learners. It is currently working that way with the internet cafes the district is hosting. It seems more realistic to keep to just keep all the students on campus for the entire day, 9 to 1:30, while keeping at home distance learners on schedule of 9 to 1:30. For high school, where teachers are credentialed by subjects, students should be grouped in learning pods based on their classes. For instance, the pod students according to their class schedules. My student is scheduled to have history, Spanish, math, and VLT next semester. If students were grouped in a group of 15, as many will safely fit in a classroom 6 feet apart, and report to one learning classroom, the teachers can rotate into the classrooms to teach. The students stay in their assigned classroom for the school day with teachers rotating. The teacher would remain no contact, sanitizing the teaching space between instruction. This would also limit the teacher exposure to the learning pods they report to. In addition to our suggestions, we have added quick links to school districts currently holding on-campus instruction successfully in areas that are still in the red tier in California. Please see below for quick resources that include Rockland, Roseville, Colfax, Sacramento, Sutter, Yolo, and Orange County school districts reopening plans. Some of these schools have been operating successfully since they moved into the red tier, and some are still working towards reopening. Please note that some of the links are new outlets, as Sacramento County has multiple school districts with several different reopening plans. We understand that we have a different demographic than some of the areas listed. However, these schools with 4 times the population can reopen. We do not understand what the issue is with safely reopening our small schools. Until a more conducive platform can be reached, where students can be on campus for more than an hour and 20 minutes of time, and the busing can be utilized before and after school hours, it is our personal opinion that the school should remain closed until we continue with our current distance learning schedule for all. Again, we know things are not a one-size-fits-all for every family. Even our family, our middle school student loves distance learning, while our high school student would prefer to be around her peers. However, we fully disagree that having a 2-hour mid-morning break, when studies show that this is the best time for learning. The 2-hour mid-morning break is our biggest contention of this current plan. Please consider this email as a disapproval of the current plan. No, we do appreciate of all the work that you are doing and continue to do daily to help our students. In no way is this personal towards any of you. I want to thank Mr. Triplett for calling us and addressing our concerns via phone conversation, and to Mrs. Vieira for getting back to us via email. We appreciate the communication. Mrs. Walker, we would like this to be added to the letters of concern at the next boarding, and CC the correct email for that. We greatly appreciate being heard and all the work you are doing during this difficult time. Have a great day, Rhonda and Michael Wasco. And the links are here if any families would like to check those out. They're in the board packet.
The next letter is Maya Austin Kaido. Dear members of the school board, I'm writing this letter to advocate for my kids' students, all of them from 5th to 12th grade. I have been a teacher in the district at Dana Gray for many years. I am in a unique place in the timeline of Fort Bragg's history. I've had some of your children in my class, but I have also been in some of your classes. Crazy. Please hear me out. Going into hybrid learning on November 30th is irresponsible. Many reasons make it irresponsible due to the pandemic, but I want to show why it is irresponsible for the development and education of the kids. That's why we are all here, for the children. Do you know that we will be moving kids between teachers during this crazy emotional time? We are going to provide more loss for these kids, more loss and without any closure. Irresponsible. Do you know that the kids are going to be get half the amount of direct instruction? Half. When we spent this year getting set in distant learning. We are on a roll. Now the kids will have to learn a new schedule and possibly a new person and style of instruction. Do you know that the kids won't even fit in the classroom with 6 feet between their desks? Staff at Dana Gray has tried in my classroom. Only 11 desks will fit, measuring from their edges 6 feet apart. We are now being forced to measure from nose to nose 6 feet. I hope 5th graders don't move around in their seats too much. Irresponsible. Do you know that we most likely won't know who everyone's teacher will be by the time we leave for Thanksgiving break? So the kids will not be able to wrap their minds around moving teachers and having closure with their current class that has become their strange digital family. They already lost last year. Irresponsible. Do you know that teachers will not be able to fully set up their classrooms to welcome students? We won't know who will be in our classrooms. That means name tags, wall displays, etc. won't be there to welcome kids on the first day of school. that will make this transition even worse. Do you know that the first time a kid might meet their teacher and new classmates will be when they enter a masked classroom? They won't have any relationships with their teacher or classmates. They won't feel good at all. I just want to make sure that we all have the same facts. It seems like with emails being the only way to communicate, we all might not be working with the same information. Those of you on the board who were teachers and you know that those relationships cultivated between teachers and students are so precious and cherished. When I am feeling nervous, I still think of some advice Ms. Walker told me when I was a sophomore in high school. Those of you on the board who are parents, you know too. You know how much kids love their teachers. Ripping their classroom families apart during a pandemic, during the holidays when it isn't safe to go visit grandma in Arizona, providing more loss, irresponsible. Here's an idea. I know I don't have a huge voice by myself here, but I need to say it or I will never forgive myself. We wait until January 19th at the earliest to begin hybrid learning. Hear me out. If we have time to fully understand who is coming back, who is staying distant, both teachers and students, we will be able to make better decisions on class placements. We would be able to communicate these changes to the students in early December. The classes would have parties and closures on this chapter of the school year. The kids would change classes feeling closure and love. Then when the holidays are over on January 4th, we would start with our new classes in distant learning. We would build relationships, practice new schedule, and set expectations for those first 2 weeks. Then after Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we would begin hybrid learning together as a classroom family. The kids would meet their teacher in person for the first time and truly be excited about seeing their welcoming eyes. Thank you for hearing me out. I truly think this is the best plan for our kids. They are resilient, they are hardworking, they love learning. Rushing into an unsafe and strange situation isn't the best plan to throw our children into. They deserve the best we can give them, and waiting until at least January 19th gives us the time we need to create as well as complete a system that will foster good relationships between teachers and students and strengthen education at Fort Bragg FBUSD. May everyone in your life be happy and healthy. Maya Austin Kaido, 5th grade teacher, Dana Gray Elementary.
Okay, this one is from John Richardson, Fort Bragg Unified School District Board. I'm reaching out today to share my thoughts on the proposal of children returning to school following the Thanksgiving break for 2 hours per day, Monday through Friday. To start, as a father of 3 children in our school system, as a board member for Little League, and as a person who for 18 years ran group homes for children, and for the 3 years ran a non-public school, I want to share that this plan is not the best interest of children, teachers, or our community. I applaud your efforts to try and return our children to some sort of normalcy during this very unusual, unprecedented times, but they seem to be misguided and driven by some loud voices in the community who are now, and they have been against COVID restrictions from the start. The main thoughts that must be considered when deciding to allow kids to return to school is if it is done responsibly, safely, and is in the best interest of all. And unfortunately, this plan isn't. When I voted to allow kids to play Little Leagues last season for a 4-week practice program, it was done with an incredible amount of oversight and scrutiny and almost fell apart with 8 board members managing 9 teams. To try this plan with the amount of kids involved is begging for disaster. The main oppositions that I have, however, are as follows. You are planning on bringing children back directly following a holiday where families are getting together. A large portion of our community are choosing to not follow the mandates by the county, so you can be assured that they will not around Thanksgiving. History has shown that after a holiday, COVID numbers surge. The plan to bring children back at this time is poorly thought out. Wait until after the holidays and see where the county COVID numbers are then. While not always easy, for the most part, families have planned how to manage their lives and their children's education during these trying times. The plan now to have them adjust again for 2 hours per day, Monday through Friday, is going to be a challenge that is greater than can be imagined. A lot of families may not be able to accommodate that schedule. And then, of course, the concern that if COVID cases do occur with kids in the school, I'm assuming that the school in question, or maybe even the district, would need to revert to distance learning again, at least for some time, causing families to readjust again. It is important to note that nearly every study in the development of children shows that they need consistency and structure to have success. If we are If our children are forced to change that structure back and forth, it will be at the detriment of their development. This challenge, of course, could occur at any time we have our children come back to school, but choosing to do it at this time increases those chances dramatically. Some schools haven't planned for kids returning and can't guarantee that our children will retain their current teachers. All children do better when they've built a positive relationship with the adults in their life. Asking children to possibly have new teachers mid-school year is a challenge that many of our children shouldn't have to suffer due to a rushed approach to return children to school. Personally, one of my children struggles with trusting a new teacher in his life, and if he must have a new teacher, he will most likely not be able to return to school this year, and his education will suffer. I understand that it is a personal challenge, but one that is not specific to me and my child. To close, I hope you understand that I believe it is in the best interest to work to get our children back to school, but not in the manner that is being presented and not on the date that is being suggested. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully, John Richardson.
The next letter is from a student, Senior Jersey Tager. Good morning. This is going to be a lengthy email, so please bear with me. I want to start off by saying how, as a senior this year, I've waited all of high school and my life for this year. I know that it is not any of your faults, and I want to express how sorry I am because it is affecting all of you too. I want to go back to school as much as anyone else, but I think that as a whole, the proposed plan for the high school with the 2-hour break will not be efficient for reasons including, one, not only are you asking students at the school to stop their learning for 2 hours to go home and log back on, you're asking the kids at home to log on at 9 a.m. to log for 80 minutes, only to log off for hours and then log back on. 2, I can truthfully say I think we will see a drop in attendance across the board. 3, not only attendance, but many kids now have jobs and work at places that close at 5 or 6 rather than being able to put in 3 or 4 hours of work. It will likely be that they will not put in any during the week. A lot of these kids have these jobs to support their families. 4, you're also asking that parents need to find them transportation, whether that be leaving their job to take their children to school and then home, the bus, going to a friend's house, or even carpooling, where the last 2 examples completely defeat the purpose of the whole social distancing purpose. 5, we all saw how well our students have adapted to distant learning as a whole these first almost 2 quarters. By going back before next semester, I truly believe it will have a huge negative impact on the kids. We are used to our classes being online. The proposed plan is asking us not only stay longer, but be engaged for the last 2 classes after not doing anything school related for 2 hours. As I said in reason 6 or 5, our students have adapted amazingly to this virtual learning. I believe that putting any plan into effect prior to the end of semester is going to negatively impact grades and mental health in the student body. 7, while missing the first half of the year, we lost homecoming, sports, games, FFA activities, meetings, and the time that these seniors would never have the opportunity to make up. I feel that going back to school too early will stop us from getting the chance to experience anything else. To me, the poor choice of the plan shows how not ready we are to go back. I will 100% rather wait than come back too early and, like I said, ruin the opportunities we would have in a normal spring semester. As I said earlier, I am more than ready to come back to school and see all of my friends, but not like this. I completely understand the whole taking it slow, but I believe it should be done in a different way. All I really can say is that to me, the 2-hour schedule break is not a good idea. I hope that you guys will take the time to read this and understand how poorly it can affect the students. Thank you for your time. Sincerely.
Okay. This one's from Shelley Butterfield. Good evening. I would like to start by saying thank you for all you are doing. I know that there are guidelines handed down to you and you are doing the best to please everyone. I'd like to propose another plan for safely bringing kids and staff back to campus. The plans proposed are not going to make it easier for the kids to learn. It doesn't make working parents' lives easier unless busing is going to be offered. I wish I had more time to give a better presentation on this, but well, life gets crazy with kids in it. In my back to school scenario, there are a max of 10 students safely spaced plus a teacher in each classroom. That would mean that the high school, there would be approximately 300 students on campus. These classes could be grouped to move from class to class following their subjects, i.e. math, English, etc., or they could be in one class for the entire day and the teachers could switch per subject. I don't know how many students there are in the high school. I feel like 300 students on campus is completely doable safely. And to be quite honest, I could imagine that there are many parents who will not be considering on-campus learning at all. In this scenario, the on-campus classes could be interactive with home learners. I feel if the teacher is teaching in their normal setting of the classroom, their lessons would be easier to project to the students both distant and on campus. As all know, even if we want to ignore it, that many of our kids, including mine, have been with each other. There are posts on social media of river trips, bike rides, camping, and yes, parties. There are many of these kids who are working in the public with adults and other kids. There are many kids also, including mine, whose parents have been working this whole time with safety measures taken. I think we need to realize that this has taken a huge toll on our town, emotionally, financially, physically. We have to do what is best for the kids. I have seen the amount of medications for depression rise since this started. I have watched my daughter become angry and aggressive out of lack of social interaction. These side effects are long-lasting and hard to reverse. These kids are failing, and many of them have just a few short months and years to be moved into adulthood, and there is no way, and they're no way ready for that. In closing, I want to say I absolutely respect my fellow parents who don't want on-campus learning and can help their families thrive and grow. I praise their efforts. I and many others cannot do that, and we are still striving to do things. It isn't working. My son's grades are absolutely proof of that. I will not stop fighting for a better solution to education for our youth, as their future is my future, and I'm not going to let it slide away without a fight. Thank you for your time in this matter and all your efforts to find a working solution. Shelley Butterfield, mom of 3 FBUSD students.
The next letter is from a parent, Terry Kurdai. Dear Board of Trustees, I am writing to you as a parent of a sophomore attending Fort Bragg High School regarding the proposed reopening of Fort Bragg High. I am one of the parents requesting that my student return to the classroom, not just for the social aspect of school, but for the struggle we go through every day with online learning in my household. My daughter is one that needs to learn with teacher instruction in the classroom. I have watched her struggle, cry, freak out, and get so depressed that we almost had to take her to counseling. Almost. And unfortunately, she is not the only child I know this is happening with. Some may do amazing with distant learning, but unfortunately in our household, it is not working. I work 5 days a week, 8 to 5, as well as my husband, and so we are not home. This means that she sits home alone with no interaction besides online schooling. Her teachers have been amazing, don't get me wrong on that front. They are doing everything they can to help her, but we are at the point where she does not care. We have to do something to bring these kids back, not only for my child, but for those whose parents are going through the same thing. For those that do not know me, I also coach the high school cheer squad. Trust me when I say I see and hear a lot of what these kids are doing, and they absolutely need structure, and that means going back to school. There are safe ways to keep them in school. Most of them now have jobs and are working 4 to 5 days a week after distant learning. If they can do distant learning and then go back in our community wearing a mask, there's no reason why they should not be able to go back in the classroom safely. They are losing their childhood, their ability to talk with each other and just be a kid. I have looked at the proposed schedule. Having them in the classroom for only 1 day with the teacher is not workable. Then go to distant learning at home for the remaining day. Our students need more in-class instruction. I know everyone has said to make suggestions on what you feel the schedule should be, so here is my idea. Monday through Friday, first period would be 8:30 to 10 a.m. in-person instruction. Second period would be 10:15 to 11:45, support class at school via online new classroom. Third period would be noon to 1:15, switch to final class for in-person instruction. 1:15 would be released for the day. By moving to different classrooms all masked up, they will be going to a clean location each hour and a half. Since you have the A and B groups, you will have more classrooms available to start this out slowly. Use the arrow system that they are all used to now. By releasing the kids at 1:15, you will have the time to clean each classroom in preparation for the next day. Honestly, these kids can also help wipe down their area before leaving in the last 5 minutes of class. If they want to be back in school, they can also help to clean it, keep it clean and sanitized. I know you are at the hands of our health officer, and I completely understand that. But we, as parents, educators, and administrators, have to be the voice for our children. If our community can allow our high school kids to work in our community, then they should be able to be allowed back to school. There is no difference in them working for hours versus being in school for up to 4 hours. The exposure is the same. You just do it with all the safety precautions that are already in place. Thank you for your consideration, and I know that we all want the same goal in the end.
Okay, this one is from Katie Turner. Dear school board members, I know there is a recommendation for the district to reopen schools on November 30th. It feels like the recommendation is being pushed through. Just because you are allowed to open doesn't mean you should. I know many of us are struggling with the isolation of this pandemic, and many students have problems and struggles right now. No one is unaffected by this. Reopening schools to some hybrid model before the holidays and in the middle of cold and flu season, while we are also experiencing a spike in the pandemic, not only our nation, but in our community, is incredibly short-sighted and reckless. Even your Dr. Miller agreed that the risk is increased coming back to school after and during the holiday season. Bringing everyone back to school just increases the risk to the students that you are trying to protect. The safest place for most students is not at school right now. For the students who truly need in-person help, ask teachers who are willing to host internet rooms, hire more teacher aides to run tutoring rooms. Do what you can to help these students, but do it without needlessly endangering your entire teaching staff. There are better options. If you reopen our schools now, you will be responsible for the disaster to follow. Forcing teachers back to school is not only endangering them, but their families. While I choose to keep my kids home, I cannot choose to keep my husband home. He and other teachers can do their jobs efficiently and safely from home, but when you send him back to school, you are forcing us to put him and our family at risk. Our teachers can effectively teach from home. They should all be given the option to do so without putting their job or teaching assignment at risk. You keep saying that we have the choice, but teachers and their families don't. Give teachers the choice to keep teaching remotely. Do not force them back. Our county health officer said in his last briefing that while students effectively spread COVID-19, they often don't get very sick. It is the teachers and school staff who are the most at risk to be very sick. Also, a few questions. Does every classroom have an effective air filtration system, or will some just be keeping their doors and windows open December through March in order to keep the air safe? With our county being at risk of losing surveillance testing capability, how do you ensure that 50% of your staff will be tested every 2 weeks? This does need to happen. Will you be specific about what kinds of masks are allowed? Gaiters and non-cotton masks have shown to be less protective. Face shields without a mask are not protective. CDC says gaiters, bandanas, vented masks, and face shields are not effective enough. Will everyone on campus be required to mask at all times? This is not happening now. Much of the population does not take COVID seriously. People are socializing and going to parties. You will be putting students in rooms with teachers who may have acted unsafely, and teachers in rooms with students who may have done this as well. With no commitment from teachers and families to not go to gatherings or socialize outside their households, you are putting everyone at great risk. Will teachers who are uncomfortable working at the school and extra exposure from being there be able to work from home after they're finished with their in-person classes? Forcing teachers to work from school when they can do their meetings and remote classes safer from home makes it seem like you don't trust your teachers. Some parents are under the impression still that you will be doing mandatory temperature checks and symptom checks at school before entry. I believe you said you are not. Can you clarify this? And when a child goes into a class who is cleaning the workstations, say, for the example, the high school technology class, or in between A and B groups at K-8, are students wiping down their own stations? Is it the teacher? I implore you, please do not force teachers back to in-person teaching. Not only will our community and families be put at great risk, but the students will suffer with their schedule, routines, and even the teachers they have grown close to being changed. They will be uprooted from the routines they have built now. And again, every time the school has to close for an exposure or worse, an outbreak, you are responsible for the safety of the district, the teachers, staff, and students. Please don't reopen. Don't let us down. Truly, Katie Turner Carr.
The next letter is from a teacher, Karen Leland, and parent. Dear members of the board, I implore you to reconsider the opening of schools currently scheduled for November 30th. Given the current COVID crisis and cold and flu season, it makes sense to wait until a safer time of January 19th. Dr. Miller stated that COVID is spread in our county by family gatherings, which will be happening for families at Thanksgiving and Christmas. If we wait until January to reopen the schools, we are guaranteed that we can all have safe social distance holidays with our families, and it will give parents and teachers alike enough time to make certain everyone returns to school COVID-free. We can also ensure that students and families don't get sick from the common cold, flu right before Christmas, since we as a community have all been doing an excellent job of social distancing. In his local coronavirus update on KZYX, Dr. Colfax has also recommended that schools wait to open until at least 2 weeks after winter break. The argument can be made that if we are practicing social distance protocols, that everything should be fine, and I'm hoping that is true. But what about the person who is asymptomatic? What about the student who removes their mask, which will happen with little ones? What about the family who sends their child to school after giving them Tylenol to help with their fever? We are not fortune tellers and cannot say whether we will be safe if we go back to the classroom. We know we can be safe if we continue to shelter in place and restrict our interaction with others. The argument has been made that we should, The argument has been made that we should go back on November 30th in order to test out and establish COVID-safe routines for students before the winter break. However, in either case, teachers will have to spend at least a week after winter break to reteach classroom routine and school expectations. Students would end up learning more by staying in the online model from late November through winter break, as students would forget many of the routines taught during December. Additionally, with a later start date of January 19th, teachers would have more time to design safe environments, review and internalize lessons to better reinforce routines, and make additional plans to establish a classroom culture that still feels socially cohesive, even though students are being asked to be socially distant. In my classroom, many of my parents are feeling that it is not a safe time to go back, and are asking me why we are not waiting until after the winter break. Why are we not waiting? Currently, 80% of our population comes from low-income homes and socioeconomically marginalized homes. The CDC has confirmed that low-income communities disproportionately develop serious illness and receive inferior treatment for COVID, putting our students' families in danger while our nation faces record numbers of new COVID cases and hospitalizations is unconscionable. Sorry, mouthful. Our resources should be focused on ensuring these students have safe access to food security and education technology, not into putting their families in harm's way. She's missing a word. She's got concerns raised about the safety of our students' homes, but from experience of being in my students' homes these past 3 months, I am overwhelmingly impressed at what amazing homes they are. Just because someone has little monetary means does not mean they are unkind, unfit, or unsafe parents. I feel horrible about being put in this position, and even worse that I am being forced to choose between my career or the health and well-being of me, my family, and my students' families. Thank you for listening to my concerns and suggestions. Karen Leland.
Okay, dear Mrs. Walker and Fort Bragg Unified School Board members, thank you once again for your dedication to our district's health and safety. I am writing to ask that you make the best decision for all involved. I understand that this task is difficult. I would like to suggest that you as a board make the decision to reopen our schools after January. I feel this is irresponsible to consider allowing our valuable teachers, staff, and our children back into classrooms at this time. We are heading into the holiday season, which also includes a school break, both known for traveling with and large family gatherings, which will most likely result in the spread of COVID. Our own county health officer stated that California is bracing for a large wave of COVID-19 cases and to be prepared for our numbers to rise after the holidays. Yet here we are once again pushing for normalcy. Many districts in California have chosen to remain on remote learning even after being given the okay to open. As of Tuesday of this week, San Francisco has stopped all approval plans for high schools to return to the classroom. I feel this shows responsibility and valued support to both teachers and families. I appreciate the option for families to remain remote or return to the classroom, and you may even wonder why I'm still showing concern. I am speaking for the teachers who are concerned for their safety. I am speaking for the health of our community. There seems to be a blatant disregard for this serious virus. By allowing children to return to the classroom at this time, we'll create an opportunity for greater spread of the virus to families and our community. I would like to know that proper steps have been taken to assure proper ventilation at all sites and what has been upgraded or put into place. What COVID-19 training has been offered to teachers, and there's a staff member who will be overseeing that these strict guidelines are being followed. How are the health aides at each site being trained, and are they involved in each of the steps needed to feel confident that they are being supported? I feel if we are returning to the classroom, not only teachers should be tested, but so should the students. This would show a responsibility to all involved. I also wanted to take a moment to address the current schedules offered by the district for reopening. I can see the time that went into this plan, and I appreciate the dedication. However, it is the schedule that isn't thinking of the student or family's well-being. Young learners are being shuffled around to accommodate the students who are headed back to the classroom. I am disappointed that families who had chosen to remain on remote learning for the year are bracing for a big change. Teachers and students have worked so hard to make meaningful connections, and this will cause a setback in their learning. Please go back to the drawing board and come up with a plan that allows for a better flow when it is safe to return. This plan will challenge all involved. The district should be trying to lessen the stress and burden of the situation that we are all facing. So once again, I ask that you make the decision to extend remote learning until after January or when the cases in California aren't on the rise. This will allow our teachers, students, and families to remain as safe and healthy as we can through these holiday months. Thank you again for your dedication to the health of our teachers, students, and community. Thank you, Gina Belossi.
Okay. So the next one looks like it's from, do you want me to read all the, looks like it's all from staff, but from all different sites?
It's up to you if you want to read the names there, Diana.
I mean, I could just read the first names just to.
If you're going to read one of them, you should read all of them.
Right. I mean, meaning like their first name. Just to.
That's up to you.
I'll just do it that way. So I'll read the letter. Dear School Board Trustees, we would like to start by saying how proud we are to work in the Fort Bragg Unified School District. We will continue to do what the district asks of us as educators and to serve our community. With this in mind, we would like to share with you our perspective on the reopening of our schools in a hybrid model beginning on November 30th. As much as we are ready to connect with our students in person, it is simply too soon amidst the global pandemic. Our nation's numbers are on the rise and we are in the cold and flu season. We expect a spike in cases as we enter the holidays. Additionally, the coast is not slated to have secure COVID-19 surveillance testing for our community. Therefore, we will not be aware of community spread and a spike in local cases. Although distant learning is not the most optimal learning environment, we have seen students establish routine relationships and structures during this time. To begin in-person learning within the next 2 weeks would not only be disruptive, but also not conducive of a secure and stable learning environment, which we know is in the best interest of students. Creating new norms, new relationships, and a new system of structure would require far more preparation and a more systematic approach, which we believe can be delivered with more time to prepare and without the onset of prolonged breaks that would only prove to be more disruptive. We understand that there are a number of our student populations that are vulnerable and need close contact with educators. We will continually strive to be proactive in establishing any support we can with these students. At this time, we urge you to consider opening schools to a hybrid model after winter break in January 2021. We as teachers feel this is the safest possible transition during these times. Thank you for your time and dedication to our students, staff, and community. We would also like to thank every family that we have had the opportunity to work with throughout this time. We know that this has been very difficult on many, but know that we appreciate everything that you have done to aid us in this process. So we have Lydia, Gabrielle, Karen, Marcia, Amy, Josh, Amanda, Katrina, Angie, Yesenia, Heather, Punya, Marshall, Virginia, Joanne, Stacy, Aaron, Jocelyn, Kylie, Cambria, Rebecca, Becky, Carrie, Eddie, Maya, Heather, Nicole, Jody, Joe, Amy, Whitney, Adam, Meredith, Matt, Margaret, Richard, Jean, Kimberly, Jenny, Allison, Leanne, Debbie, Gabrielle, and Marlena.
Okay, and just so any public knows, those are listed and can be referred to in the board packet. Here's a letter from Michelle Anderson. Dear to whom it may concern, I understand that we want to do what is best for the students, especially in a safe setting, while continuing education services to students in the best way. I am a mother of 4 children. I have seen firsthand how each of my kids thrive in the education field. Before the school had temporarily closed, my kids were doing well. Their personalities bloomed, they made friends, and they excitedly looked forward to returning to school each morning. During the temporary closure of school, of course, it was challenging for everyone, including teachers and parents, to figure out the online distance learning. 3 of my children continued to struggle with doing schoolwork online to the point that their teachers had to do one-on-one lesson with each of my kids to make sure that they were heard, seen, and stayed on top of their work. It helped, but my kids still struggled. They needed the classroom setting, socializing with their classmates, working together on homework, and being able to give an answer to their teacher with excitement. When the school year began and the school still being closed, I noticed 3 of my 4 kids lacked excitement for going to school online. The school year began super hard compared to last spring. I had to work my way through figuring out how to help my kids with online learning. I pulled one of my 4 kids to do homeschooling. She is now thriving and doing well. Now I have another kid struggling, so I'm considering pulling my kid out of online school to homeschool. I know my kids and how well they thrive being in person in a classroom setting. We should be given the choice to send them to school or do online learning. Online learning is not made for every kid. Not every kid thrives from online learning. The longer school continues to close, the more struggles will appear. The pressure of daily phone calls to teachers takes a toll on parents who have tried their best to help their kid. When help is called, we parents don't hear from the teacher immediately because they're in the middle of helping another student, or the message got pushed away in a pile of unread messages. There has been frustration in the communication and also with the frustration of online school. We are pouring our time into the challenges of online distance learning rather than pouring our time in being eye to eye and ear to ear with the students. I support the decision of opening school in person sooner rather than later for the sake of my kids who thrive from it. If school continues to be closed by the end of the year, I definitely will be pulling all of my kids out of the school to do homeschooling. I urge you to open school up at ASAP. Thank you, Michelle Anderson.
The next letter is from Angie Daniels, a teacher. Dear board members, I would like to express my concern as an educator in this district over the proposed date of November 30th to reopen our classrooms. The number of COVID cases are rising in our local community, and the hospitals in our county are currently filling up. As of November 10th, there are 9 people in the hospital and 1 in ICU. Our county also recorded an additional death this week. There have been outbreaks in daycares and learning pods locally. Our local region is reflecting an increase in cases as we enter the winter season, similar to what we are witnessing across the country. Holidays and family gatherings are known to be the foremost cause of COVID-19 cases in our county and our coastal community, according to both Dr. Miller and the county health and the health department. Thanksgiving and Christmas are holidays that will likely include family gatherings indoors due to the weather, crisis fatigue, and the traditions to be with loved ones. We are being inundated with messages from the media, local health practitioners, the county health department, the state health department, and more to practice social distancing and not have gatherings with members from outside of our own household. Why then is it deemed appropriate to open schools where up to 16 households will be mixing indoors in one room for hours at a time in the midst of winter and increased chances of community spread? Opening schools between Thanksgiving and Christmas is putting our entire community at risk of spreading COVID-19. I also have concerns about our facilities being completely ready for the return of in-person instruction safely. I appreciate the time and effort that all parties have expended to create a plan that puts students and staff safety at the forefront. However, there are items that have still not been worked out fully, such as ventilation, training, accommodating at least 6 feet of distance between workspaces, marking of capacity and directions of travel, to name a few concerns. It is not fair to make the teachers feel like they are obstructing schools from opening when what I am asking for as a teacher is what was agreed jointly with the school district. I realize that I cannot expect to fulfill my duties as a teacher in a zero-risk environment, and I'm not asking for that. I am asking to not be called back to work during the highest risk timeframe, nor without all safety measures in place. I urge you to consider not reopening school in November. As my mother used to say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I believe mid-January would be a more appropriate time to consider opening our schools. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to express my concerns. Sincerely.
Okay. Dear President Babcock and members of the board, I want to begin by thanking Superintendent Walker, President Babcock, and Trustee Paoli for holding today's board chat. I appreciated the opportunity to ask questions and participate in open and honest conversation about proposed school schedules and a return to school plan. It is very unfortunate in many ways we are in this current position. I am completely supportive of sending our kids back to school. I feel it is safe and what is the best interest of our students. For months, I've heard some say they don't want to return to school until it is safe. Yet those who express that concern have not defined what safe means to them. I have heard Dr. Miller offer guidance, examples, and suggestions for returning to school safely. This can be done safely. Our essential workers who have been working in the public since the beginning of this pandemic have demonstrated how wearing masks and being diligent about hand washing is slowing the spread and keeping our community safe. Our local essential workers have come into contact with thousands of visitors. Our visitors have shopped in our local grocery stores, supported small businesses, and kept our local economy afloat. Again, our local essential workers have come into contact with thousands since the outbreak of the pandemic. I am an essential worker. I've worn a mask day in and day out. Our district has the required PPE, cleaning supplies, and equipment to provide a safe learning environment. I feel safe sending my children back to school. With 80% of our district being low socioeconomic, so school is essential and necessary for many children in our community to be safe, loved, encouraged, and to grow socially and emotionally. Not every student has a safe and supportive family unit. Not every student has the luxury of having an adult to come home to help with distance learning. Not every student is succeeding with this current structure. We should not let the comfortable few dictate what is best for all. We can do better for the children in our community. Respectfully, Nancy Bennett.
Dear Board of Trustees and Superintendent Walker, we are in the 8th month of this pandemic. Mendocino County has transitioned into a tier that allows the lessening of restrictions, which allows schools to open beyond the waiver requirement. We have maintained the red tier for 4 weeks. We currently only have 5 people in isolation for the North Coast. Thank you for voluntarily closing schools in March when so much about COVID was unknown. I would also like to acknowledge that the district voluntarily chose not to file for a waiver to open in August while eligible. It bears saying that you have always had and continue to have the safety of everyone first and foremost. It was safe for schools to return in August with a waiver. Logic would tell you it is safer to return now 3 months later. School is in the last sector to return to operation. There is no valid reason that we should not open schools at the earliest opportunity. The requested PPE, safety gear, and safety protocols have been provided. The students and parents that chose in-person learning are ready to return. The state and county have given the green light. Teachers and school staff are essential. They are public disaster employees that are educated adults capable of keeping themselves safe in the controlled environment of the classroom. That fact has been discussed in great detail by Dr. Miller in the multiple questions and answer opportunities provided. The district has had since August to prepare for this day. The return should be to the greatest extent allowable by public health. Adults are allowed to travel on airplanes with a mask and sanitizer. Children should be allowed to move from class to class with a mask and sanitizer. If it is allowed by public health now and at any point in the future, we need to have a valid reason why we do not follow form. Multiple other counties in the red tier have returned with success and maximum in-person learning. We are not paving the way. The path is already laid out for us to follow. Now is the time to do what is the best interest of our children. There is no valid reason to postpone reopening. Members of the community and the school district are continuing to live their lives in this pandemic by shopping, gathering, traveling, eating out, having spouses that work in the public, sending their children to daycare, amongst other actions. If they are able to do these things, There should be no reason that they cannot return to the classroom and teach the youth of our community. No valid reason. Of utmost importance is the mental health of the children. It is hanging in the balance. They are withering on the vine. I fear what the continued distant teaching will do. At this point, it is not about teaching or learning. It is about saving the mental health of the children. It is owed to the children to return back to the classroom as soon as possible and to the greatest extent possible. If the return can save one child from abuse at home, save one child from self-harm, from the feeling of failure, save one child from depression and thoughts of suicide, the return will be worth it. Returning is not optional, it is necessary. Please weigh the dire needs of the children versus the wants of others when weighing this decision. The children should come first. I respectfully request that the board send back the MOU from August. Please request a revision and the requirement to meet the current health and safety standards. The current proposals are not in the best interest of our children or our community. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope to see that the needs of all our students can be met sooner rather than later. Most sincerely, Tina Rose.
In addition to my comments, which I have shared previously, I would like to voice my concern regarding the angle of the messaging that is being used towards the families to make decisions about safety and well-being of their families. It was reaffirmed to me that the question of whether or not schools will reopen to in-person learning is still up for a vote tonight. The survey that was sent out to families, or at least the high schoolers, was worded to sound as if it was done deal and that families needed to respond with their choice. Please tell me why today some teachers were not fully available because they were busy setting up their classroom 6 feet apart. These tactics do not build a foster trust. In fact, you have lost my trust based on the words and actions that have been chosen. Christy Tangway, parent.
Dear members of the Fort Bragg Unified School District Board, I'm writing to express my profound concern about returning to school on November 30th in a hybrid setting. I am concerned not only for my personal health, but also for the health of the older family members of my students and, most importantly, the emotional health of my students, with whom I have worked very hard to create meaningful relationships since school started in August. The parents of my students are writing to me daily expressing great concern and anxiety that their kids will have to be moved out of my classroom depending on whether they stay distant or come back. None of us want this. I am respectfully begging the board to consider the emotional welfare of the students in regard to the bonds of trust forged with their teachers in this uncertain time. I'd like to suggest that the board reconsider opening and wait until January when more time could be given to planning, preparing students, and observing the COVID case trend in the county, given that there will undoubtedly be an increase after the holidays. Respectfully, yours respectfully, Amanda Gray, 8th grade teacher.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Walker. First and foremost, thank you for your ongoing hard work on a truly arduous task. I know we are all wanting the same thing, our children back in the classroom. As a parent of 3 8-year-olds, I have several concerns regarding the current proposed plan. This year has been so difficult for everyone, and I'm only speaking about my 3 for the moment. I agree with the general consensus that the mental health of most children, most students, and adults is an enormous concern. We have worked hard as a family to help alleviate the anxieties my kids are suffering from with moderate success. Their teachers have been a key part of that, and all 3 students have developed really solid relationships with their teachers and classmates. For them to lose that connection and support at this stage would be extremely detrimental to their mental health. When talking to other parents of elementary students, I'm hearing the same fear. We have asked so much of our young people, and we see the effects. As I see it, if returning to school means they lose the security and support of their teacher and classmates, that is not in the best interest or only furthers the mental health suffering that we as a community are seeing. I also find myself very concerned about the timing of this return. I understand the idea to get a few weeks before the holiday break that feels like a recipe for disaster. The county health officer has said that California is bracing for a huge next wave, and yet the district is considered restarting school during flu season directly after a huge gathering holiday and just before Christmas, another time when many gather and a great many travel, all while the numbers in the state as well as the country continue to rise dramatically. I'm concerned we are pushing to try to get up and running too quickly before we dip back into the purple tier. The health and mental well-being of our incredible staff is also distressing. Having the teacher more stressed out because they don't feel that their voices are being heard doesn't help anyone. Bottom line, I have grave concerns about the further damage to the mental well-being as well as physical health of our students and our community, which will be a consequence of returning to campus too early. The security and support of teachers is essential to elementary students and facing losing that. After teachers and families, as well as students, we have worked so hard to create that bond that will be devastating. I deeply appreciate the incredible taxing work the district has been doing to put this proposal together, but I would ask them to reconsider having elementary students lose their teacher and come up with a plan that truly supports the mental health of all students. I would also ask that we please wait until January, when we will have hard data about the likely increase in the cases after the holiday. As I understand it, many of the schools in our county, as well as our state, are looking at a January return. Respectfully and with much regard, Cindy Whitlock.
Hello, all. I know you all have a tough decision before you in regards to opening schools with many factors involved. I would like for schools to open for in-person instruction on November 30th. I have always been a part of both my daughter's education, from volunteering in the classroom, checking in with teachers, asking for help when needed, and just being supportive. But I will be honest, I am becoming quite frustrated and disheartened with what I feel is a lack of concern or care for my children in regards to their education, and your children are voicing the same. I have heard several students, not necessarily my own, who feel the teachers just don't care about them anymore. They like not having to deal with them in a classroom environment because it is less work for them to discipline them. The parents and teachers are losing faith in our teachers and districts. And for myself and my immediate family, we are all Fort Bragg High School graduates, and I no longer feel pride for that. Our children are failing academically, emotionally, and physically. Who is advocating for them besides the parents? As a school board, your bylaws state that your purpose is setting the direction for district through a process that involves the community, parents, guardians, staff, and students, focused on student learning and achievement. Please take this into consideration when you are making your decision this evening. Are the students in your district receiving the best education through distant learning? Look at your own families and community. We are struggling. I will share a story that one of my daughters told me last week. A classmate was speaking during class. The teacher asked how things were going. His response broke my daughter's heart. She is already struggling emotionally. He told the class how he used to have no self-esteem. He was overweight and bullied. He finally started to make friends, be more social, was enjoying life more. Then COVID hit. He became isolated. He told a group of his peers that he feels worse about himself now than before, and he hates himself. Luckily, this was in class, that the teacher was amazing in her response, and she told him he was a beautiful human being and things get better. The emotional toll on students being kept away from their peers, teachers, and staff, I feel, should be just as important as be an important conversation. Teachers are part of an essential and critical workforce. The district has done a wonderful job in preparing a safe, working, learning environment to return to. Why wouldn't we return to school? Thank you, Mary Pardini.
Okay, so that's what was loaded, but did anything come in?
Yes, I have two more, and I've put them in a folder in a document called Public Comment, New Comments. And so there's two in there.
Public comment, new comments. Okay. And then after that, maybe we'll move them to the item, unless they're, okay, I only have one. Is there?
I have two.
Scroll down, Kathy, scroll.
I'm scrolling.
Hit refresh.
So I'll read Gabriel's. That's the one I can see. Diana, can you do the other one?
Sure.
Okay. So Gabriel Quinn Maroney. As long as the pharmaceutical companies' lobbyists are outspending the oil industry 3-1, without bold and visionary leadership from the district board, our children and students will live in an educational environment that remains for their own profit. Even before issues with this COVID virus, our teaching program has been overly virtual. No matter if the students are in person or online, they need to learn more about the natural world. Botany, ecology, astronomy, marine sciences, geology, and so many other subjects are brushed to the side. It is really heather for children to enter a classroom with such a sterile surgery room-like environment, masked with separations as if we are biohazards. What is really being taught would mainly be authoritarianism over science. Bill Gates found that vaccines can produce a profit margin of 21-1, which is almost as profitable as buying off a politician. And so even though the California Constitution avers the education as a right, your schools do not allow certainly religions such as Christian Scientists, and we look to synthetic drugs as our savior. How do we then, as caring parents, teachers, and staff members, advocate best for our children when the funding can be pulled away from school, not in compliance with the vision of the billionaire elite? Thank you, Gabriel Quinn Maroney.
And the next letter. Good evening, Fort Bragg Unified School District, School Board, and Superintendent Becky Walker. Before I begin this letter, I promised myself that I would not submit any comments this evening. I would be a good girl and just listen, as I had the opportunity to make my plea and present my case earlier this morning at the board chat meeting forum. I tried, I really did, but then something happened today that I seem to be that really shakes me up. Let me start off by saying I do not doubt for one moment that the people teachers' fear of the coronavirus is very real. I acknowledge that and would never try and minimize anyone's fears. I have people close to me who suffer from anxiety and fear. Not only are their fears very real, but they are becoming crippled to them if they let them. I came home and started to do some research. I started writing down statistics and numbers from several pandemics that the U.S. and the world have faced. 1918 through 1919, Spanish flu, 15 million deaths, survival rate percentage, much 0%. 2005, AIDS, 28 million deaths in that year alone. 2014-15, Ebola, 80% chance of death. The list and numbers go on and on, but nowhere in the history of any of these pandemics could I find where public schooling shut down. 2020, COVID global cases as of today was 52,588,560. U.S. cases, 10 million. U.S. deaths, 241,000. I think I'm reading this backwards. 80% of cases are mild, 20% seriously ill, 2% chance of death. Yearly influenza, 9% death. Of course, numbers change depending on where you get your information. So when I took a look at our small town, I believe there have been 5 to 7 cases since March. Safeway workers, hospital workers, and many essential workers on the front lines since the beginning. Hospital workers and medical care providers spending several minutes and hours with each patient in close quarters. They are still working. Next, I brought the fact very close to home, my own son. He's an essential worker in Eureka. Yes, he's been exposed to COVID by one of his clients. When it happened, he called to let me know. I asked how he was feeling about it. He replied, well, it sucks, but I'm not worried. I wear my mask. I use hand sanitizer and I clean all the time. I'm safe, Mom. He was negative. Did he go back to work after his exposure? Yes. Then I asked myself, why is he continuing to work? I would like to think it's because of the strong work ethics I have given him and teaching him to find gratitude in life. Yes, he is very grateful to have a job, especially during these times. But then I wondered, would he have gone back to work if he was given the opportunity to work from home and still receive the same pay? I'm not sure, but what I do know is he along with most of us are not given that choice. We go to work or no pay. It's that simple. After much thought, I can't help but wonder, are our teachers letting their fears cripple them and keep them from teaching our children? And if we keep feeding these fears, will we ever go back in person, public learning, schooling? Again, I ask the board to make their decisions tonight based on the needs of our children, the very people and reasons why we are all here tonight. Thank you for your time. Monique Wooden.
Okay. And is there a pause in it, or did we get?
That was the.
Well, that was it, but I didn't know if anything else came through with Anna.
No, there is no more public comment.
Okay. So just a reminder to the public that you are welcome to continue to write in. The items can be addressed, which we've read everything that we've received to time. But you can write in and we can definitely read those comments as we address each item. If you write in about you return to school, or if you would like to write in about the board policies, we will always read them at the time. So don't think you missed out. If something comes up and you get a great thought, please continue, and we will pause. I know there's a delay, so we'll just make sure before we move on the items, I try to make sure that I pause. Okay. Thank you very much for the community. That was a long time to listen to Diana and mine's voice, but we do appreciate both the people that came this morning and also everybody's time that they sent in the letters. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on to reports, and the first one is the board reports. So I'll open it up to the board members if they have been participating in anything or any comments they would like to make.
I guess I'll go since I'm unmuted. So let's see. I wrote a bunch of notes. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to be quick. I want to thank the community. I received tax bills for property tax, and I really do appreciate having the community vote that, so we were able to do deferred projects. And I think we have that on the agenda tonight. But it is an increase, and but I personally voted and want to support our schools and our community. I attended the AM board chat, which was a nice discussion. I also visited the Dana Gray Internet Room, and that was, again, extended. They wanted to make sure that every board member knew that they could go to, I guess, to any site, but particularly the Dana Gray, and that you can show up at 8 or 8:30 because that's when the breakfast is being served. So if, I know some aren't able to come because they're helping or working between 8 and 1. This is for the board. And then I also was able to attend the trick or treat event, which was really touching and exhausting. A lot of kids didn't know what to say. And so you often were coaching them with trick or treat, happy Halloween, you're welcome. And I didn't do a count, but the line was not stopping, and I was a little bit worried that I was going to be there. I had signed up for the last shift and thought, why did I do that? Because this is never going to end, because it was so well attended. But it touched my heart because I can't tell you how many children thanked us for volunteering, and even parents were very grateful. So everyone really appreciated the event, and I appreciate everyone that collaborated on that. I just volunteered. I also attended, there was a meeting, a parent meeting. They're the 3:30 Friday, normally a Friday meeting. The tech group that was getting a contract together and discussing social media and safety for kids. There's another meeting. We lost quite a few families, and it could be just timing. But if you'd like to come back to the group on November 19th at 3:30, I think is the next meeting. And there really is a good product, and there's more discussions to be had. The Social Dilemma on Netflix, everyone that owns a phone has to watch that. It'll bend your brain a little bit, and it's worth watching, really, truly. I went to Redwood ELAC, but there was no attendance from parents, so I think that'll be rescheduled. I also I forgot to mention, I was contacted by a Redwood staff, and also in the board chat, they invited the board to come tour. So anyone that wants to go to Redwood, they've invited us to come to the classroom. And like I said, this is going to be lengthy. I do really appreciate being a member of CSBA. They give, feels like daily reports. And they did notify us that they're going to make a shorter, smarter balance test, which I guess is the CAST. Is that right? Or is that something different? They're doing a different time from 6 to 8 hours down to maybe 3 or 4 hours. So reducing that. And they're also, I guess some of the stuff that I wanted to pop out, I'll probably talk more about in the agenda, but I have been doing a number of just trying to get some statistics with, legitimate professionals in the community. And there was a gentleman, a Dr. Ashish Jha, and he was talking about the importance of going back to school. And like I said, I'll talk about it more during the under the agenda at the appropriate time. But there's some really good stuff. But what I will say on right now, because it's from the state board report, and I just think that it's great that we're a member, this was from President Linda Darling Hammond, and she's the first in line for President-elect Biden to appoint her for the Secretary of Education. And she, just to give some information from her, there's 58 counties in the state that have students, 6 million kids. 21, mostly rural, are in person. 20 counties, they're mixed, so they're in person and distant learning. 17 of the most urban counties are still in distant learning. And she's quoted, they just met, and I've watched 2 of their meetings before, and they are a full day fun meeting. So I've listened to them when I'm doing chores. But she quotes during their last meeting, which I think was in November, just a few weeks ago, California Department of Public Health has yet to find an increase in COVID rates associated with school openings, and credited both state and local efforts to ensure students and teacher safety. So like I said, I'll talk a little bit more under the topic, but that I've spent way more than I probably needed to check indicators. And that's what I've been doing with my time.
I'll go next. So I am in Texas actually with my daughter and her new baby. So I will admit that I've been focused a lot on that, but I did attend the FBMS ELAC meeting on Tuesday. We did have one parent come, and so that seemed to go well. They'll be, of course, having another meeting. I also have been doing the CSBA, written a lot of articles and webinars and whatnot, and monitoring local and statewide and nationwide COVID information regularly. I was hoping to, also I spoke to Fort Bragg Middle School Principal Laura Vieira, and she said basically that right now, because of being distant learning, they've sent out their progress reports, and otherwise things are humming along. I did have a question for Kathy and Diana. The tech group that you guys are attending, I'm interested in what's going on, and I know we can only have 2 people. So, and I know Scott had mentioned being interested too, and I think Jerry as well. So I was just wondering if we could get like a little, at some point, maybe Kathy, you 2 could talk, Diana, and send something out to us about the progress that's being made and what's happening. Thanks.
So I want to thank everybody that spent a lot of time writing emails and letters to us to let us know how they feel. So it is a lot to think about. I hope we make a good decision. I went to a Dana Gray ELAC meeting. There were several parents who attended. Could use a lot more, but we'll take it. And also I attended a couple of the bond meetings at Redwood, getting a plan to get together for our construction projects.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, I have just a few things. I first would like to, I believe this might be my last meeting as president, so I'll call the meeting to order next month, but unless we have a special, I just want to thank you. I wasn't able to go to any any official board president training, so I just thank the community and the board and the staff for my inexperience and my learning as I was on the seat of my pants. So thank you for that. And I just, it's been a pleasure to serve in that role. And I thank you for that. I went to the Dana Gray Site Council, and I have to tell you, there was some great stuff from the parent group. I was quite impressed. It did make me miss having a Dana Gray student, because I miss the elementary school. They're so cute and cuddly. And now I have a growling, tween. It's not, and a feral cat as a high schooler. But anyway, it was great to be back on campus. But what a great group of parents, and good luck with that. And then today I actually kind of spontaneously was in a Redwood room and got to see firsthand how they're setting up their rooms. And it looks great. I mean, it really, the desks are spread out and the teacher has their front room. Of course, she's still set up for distance learning, but it looks like a little mini classroom, and it was great. It was nice to be able to see them. And then, as Diana said, we've gone to the parent group meeting. I did swing by the FFA movie night, and I just want to thank the admin at Mrs. Alexander was at the drive-in, plus, of course, Mrs. Tunzi. But it was just great to see the support, and the kids seemed to have a lot of fun. And then I did attend one of the bond meetings at Redwood. So lots of stuff happening around the district, even though we are trudging through with this pandemic. So thank you for all the invites and including us in these meetings. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so we held the board chat this morning. I have to say, I know that COVID is incredibly hard on all of us. I will say that the online format has allowed more participation in mostly every parent meeting that we've had. So I have to say that I am pleased with that. And if we need to continue an online format to keep parent involvement going, that's something we should consider moving on. So at today's board chat, I did a quick memory wrap up, and I believe we had 7 parents, we had 4 teachers, we had 5 admin, we had 2 board members and myself. So we had just under 20 people present. I thought it was a successful meeting. We've never had 20 people present in any kind of meeting that we've had. I believe we did have 20 people present at our last board meeting in March because we were dealing with COVID, and it was about the Prop 68 funds and so many, a myriad of other things. So I was happy to see as many people as we had. So thank you for those who participate in the board chat. We appreciate your attendance and taking the time to be with us. Kathy, are you okay if I just keep moving right along? Okay, so next on the superintendent report, we have in-person board meetings. We had the conversation with Dr. Korn, I believe it was last Friday, about in-person board meetings now that we are in the red. If we are asking our students and our staff to go back to school, we asked Dr. Korn very specifically about in-person board meetings. And his recommendation at that time, and it still continues to be, is that our board meetings for the large part continue to be online because COVID-19 is a illness that is transmitted more easily through adult to adult transmission. But what I would like to suggest is that now that that we are in the red tier, I am happy to be in room 306 at the high school where we would normally hold the board meetings. Keep all of you virtual. Anna, my assistant, and I could be in that room. We could have a Chromebook propped up so that folks who want to provide in-person comment could go to the Chromebook, and it would still be a virtual meeting, but they could do that live in front of me and my assistant. And we could have a place where we 6 feet socially distance and keep that room limited to however many we could keep socially distanced in that room, require masks, and go from there. So it's just something to consider if we want to provide an in-person meeting place. Very limited. You as the board could stay at home. Like I said, I would go into room 306 and do that with my assistant, have a Chromebook up, and then have chairs spaced out. So it's no decision that we have to make right now, but I wanted to bring that to your attention because I do recognize that if we're bringing our kids back, I want to be able to lead by example as well. Diana.
I think I asked a couple of months ago, why we weren't doing that or if we could, and I don't want to take a seat from the public, but I'm happy to meet and, a couple board members. I don't know what the restriction is and why we're different, but if I don't know how many people you can get in that room, I'd be happy to go in 306 as well.
Okay. So Dr. Korn just released an updated school guidance document that was sent out by County School Superintendent Michelle Hutchins a little bit after 6 o'clock tonight. So I'll be reviewing that and looking and see if there's any board meeting specifications in there. Next in the report is a CIF update. And guess what? We don't have much to update. So the hard part is that I called Mr. Triplett. There was an athletics director's meeting. Mr. Kubo, who was our fearless athletic director, attended that meeting virtually. And right now, there have been no decisions made. We are still in a holding pattern. Any questions about that? And then the facility report, we did have 2 meetings, one with a facility kind of advisory committee, and then one with our Redwood team to talk about some of the details and nuances of what the new Redwood classrooms would look like. I have emailed all of you the facility report through QKA. The idea right now is to begin in a 3-phased period. Redwood would go first, with Portable Row being the first part to be demolished and rebuilt, and only half of it so that the students could remain in the preschool and in the autism class until the new wing is created. From there, Alt Ed would go next. And then the following, we would go back to Redwood to finish the additional classrooms on the portable side, looking at the wiring at Redwood to have that completely done throughout all the classrooms, and then redesigning the complete front of the building with a new drop-off for our families. So that's what we're looking at right now. What we've completed so far is having QKA, our architect, come out, meet with staff. We walked through all of the portables so they understood that the space that the portables serve, how they serve our community and Redwood. So I feel good about the momentum that we're gaining right now and that we are moving forward. I did send all of you that PowerPoint that they had. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. And that is it from, yes, Jerry.
I don't have any questions. I just want you all to know, except Becky, because she already knows, that she could not be clearer to the architect how important it is to stretch our dollars. So we don't need any frills. We just need good, solid projects that get the job done. So she's out there fighting for us, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay. I am done, President Babcock.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to our second meeting with our student rep. This is so exciting. So Zaid, we'll turn this over to you for a few minutes.
Okay. Good evening, the board. Redwood Elementary's report is the end of their marking period is tomorrow, and report card conferences with parents take place next week. Things are really busy at the Redwood. They had a great event that their counselor, Catherine Burnsford, hosted about proactive parenting. Teachers are preparing their classrooms for in-person instruction. Dan Gray Elementary's report is the end of the first trimester is tomorrow, and Dan Gray's parent-teacher conference are next week, Monday the 16th through Friday the 20th. Teachers are making individual appointments with families to discuss students' progress. Parents should contact the Dan Gray office if they have any questions. Dan Gray's virtual winter book fair will be open Sunday, November 22nd. Visit their website for a link to purchase books. Help support the Dan Gray Parents Club with book purchases at the virtual book fair website. Dan Gray teachers and students are working through the oral reading record fluency assessment. And lastly, Dan Gray teachers and staffs want all families to have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, November 23rd to November 27th. Fort Bragg Middle School is mailing home progress reports tomorrow. Students can check out library books, visit their website to find the link to check out books, and their English language advisory committee met Tuesday. Fort Bragg High School end of their grading period is Friday, November 13th, ASB is holding a school-wide Kahoot trivia game this Friday. Student of the Month certificates will be mailed home next Friday, November 20th. And alternative education has no report.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for joining us again. All right, so 8.4 is the California Schools Employee Association report. Do we have any? Oh, well, there's Sarah. Is there anybody from CSEA?
Doesn't look like they're here.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we'll move on to Fort Bragg District Teachers Association.
Good evening. I'm Sarah McGee, the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association president. And I want to thank the board and the administrators for the work that they are doing and the thoughtful consideration of all the comments that you're taking. I'm going to read our report this evening. So since our county moved into the COVID-19 red tier 4 weeks ago, the members of FBDTA have been diligently preparing for the transition to a hybrid model of teaching. This is a time of mixed feelings for many. Our teachers are both excited to see their students in person again and embracing the challenges inherent to such a significant change, while also being concerned about the impact the transition may have on our community's control of the pandemic. There is a relief that we will better be able to serve and support students who have struggled with distance learning, and pride at how well so many students have taken to the new approach. Earlier this week, FBDTA reached out to our members to check in and see how folks are feeling. And we were heartened by the number of positive stories that we heard. Whether it is students who have expressed their surprise in finding themselves excelling in ways they hadn't previously, the feelings of community in virtual classrooms, improvements in attendance, or many stories of newfound mastery of tech. Our students and members have risen to challenges and made this year great for many. However, alongside these feelings of joy at the many successes of the past 14 weeks, there's also a strong sense of discomfort at the proposed timing of the transition to hybrid. November 30th is 5 days after Thanksgiving, and while our community has done a fantastic job of controlling the spread of COVID-19 locally, we can acknowledge that the holidays offer a challenging time for maintaining that control. Returning in person at the exact time that symptoms may be starting to show greatly reduces our ability to control an outbreak if one were to occur. Setting a later transition date would allow us to manage any possible spike in cases should it happen, or return with even greater confidence if it doesn't. Additionally, as we move toward the hybrid model, some students will inevitably need to change teachers. For our younger students, it makes sense to allow these switches to occur first in the virtual setting that is now familiar, so that they can take time to focus on getting to know their new class before the big change to in-person school takes place. Likewise, transition time will allow teachers to work with students on expectations for in-person learning prior to their actual return. For our high school students, with finals scheduled for the last week before winter break, asking them to transition to a new model of teaching 2 weeks prior to the completion of their first semester classes risks causing unnecessary disruption and harming their chances of success. Making the transition after winter break would allow them to start fresh as they begin their new schedule. Our teachers, administrators, students, and parents have dedicated so much time, energy, and emotion into ensuring this school year would be as positive as possible. And we urge the board to move forward deliberately and intentionally with the necessary care taken towards the transition so that we can make sure the next phase of this process is as successful as the first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. All right. Okay, so we are going to move on to the consent items. And these are traditionally non-controversial and routine items. And so did anybody find anything that they feel needs to be pulled or discussed? Okay. If not, I'll call for a motion and then ask Diana to read the list.
I move to approve the agenda consent items.
I'll second.
All right. Diana, would you mind reading those, please?
9.1 warrants dated November 5th, 2020. 9.2 is minutes of October 15th, 2020. 9.3 is the personnel action report. And 9.4 is obsolete items.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Opposed? All right. Approved. Thank you. All right. So I just want to pause for a moment. If there's anyone that was here for reports that would like to log off, we'll pause so that you don't feel like you're abandoning us. Zaid, if you have homework or anything, we thank you again for coming. All right. So we'll move on to our pretty long for our action items, but we'll go to the first one, which is the learning continuity and attendance plan.
So we received a letter from the county office with recommendations, and it wasn't anything in the plan per se, the specifics. It was more of outlining the rest of our budget. And so I believe that we did that. And so what you see in this plan as it was different in September is that more of the budgetary items are outlined. Wendy, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, because the process was so compacted, we didn't really have a good idea of where we were going to spend all the dollars. And now we've got about 80% of it identified in this plan.
So it has to come back to you for approval.
But we don't have to have it, the other 20%. If we spend it, we don't have to bring this back again.
No, they just felt that it would be better if we identified more of what we were going to do, which if we had until this month, we'd have been able to. There are still a few things that we're discussing about whether to do or not, what the best use of the funds are. And I believe we will have it all spent by the December 30th deadline for that portion that needs to be spent by then.
Well, I move to approve the learning continuity and attendance plan template per the recommendations of the County Office of Education with the dollar amounts.
And I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Okay. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Mackellar?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And President Babcock?
Yes. Okay, 10.2, the Redwood Coast Senior Center. They have a 99-year lease, but yet we have to approve what they're going to do to our building. So looks like some great things.
And it's typically over, I think, I want to say that approval has to be over $5,000 if they're going to do something over $5,000. And first, let me just say I would like to publicly commend Jill Rexroad for her diligent work on improving the facility, making sure that the needed repairs are being addressed. People will ask, well, how come this is not going out to bid? It's not going out to bid because this is all done through donation. So these are donated dollars, which is pretty incredible, to be quite honest with you. So you have a list in front of you of what they've purchased and what they're going to be looking at. It's an impressive list. She actually included some pictures as well. I would encourage all of you at some point when we are through, hopefully, some of our restrictions and it's lightened up a little bit, to go on a tour of the senior center with Jill so that you can see the improvements that she's made. It's impressive. And I shouldn't say that Jill's recommendation to make, and she's made sure that it's been done. So thank you, Jill, and the team at the senior center for ensuring that our seniors have a great and wonderful, safe place. So questions?
The project did go out to bid. It's just that the Redwood Coast Senior Center handled the bids, and it does not have to be prevailing wage because it's all private money.
Thank you, Jerry, for the correction. Appreciate that.
So question I have about this is, looking at Appendix A, what's highlighted, there's an item, I know it's not over $5,000, so maybe it's not relevant. The replaced blinds, are we looking at approving that? And then I noticed there's a big overage, over $5,000 with replacing the windows. Do we need to approve that as well?
I think some of those things are things that have already happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of those are prior repairs and improvements that they've done.
We already approved the windows, and I want to say that was last year.
I'm looking at it opposite. They actually understand. I'm sorry. Okay, I answered my own question.
If you go down to Appendix A, it highlights all the particular projects that are part of what we're doing right now. And I would just like to say thank you to the Senior Center for taking such good care of the building.
For sure. And I can't wait to go on the tour. So I make a motion to approve the request for the repairs.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Okay, President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
and Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
Okay, we have 10.3, our joint use agreement with MCRPD and Fort Bragg Unified School District.
So this is something that we do with them annually. And so this was approved by the board on October 15th. But this is the one that we needed to add in the classrooms. Is that correct, Anna?
First of all, they had to pass a resolution saying that there was going to be a joint use agreement, and then you and MCRPD created the joint use agreement based on the recommendations in the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just looking over it right now.
The one thing I was worried about, but I went back and reread it, is just the like who gets priority. But of course it does specifically say in there that, because it said during school time, but I still was worried about, but I went back through and read it, and they still have to fill out use agreements and things to make sure that Fort Bragg High School or Fort Bragg Middle School, or whoever gets the rooms, or I was really looking at the big facilities, not classrooms, but the cafeteria and the student union and the gyms and things.
And MCRPD has always been really good about looking at our calendar, and everything that they do as far as any activities for kids are always coordinated within our calendar. So I'm not concerned about this at all.
Okay. And I've been very bad because these have been in my opinion, and sorry, I've been uncontroversial, but there has not been any emails from public comment, right, Anna? Okay.
The one thing that I want to make mention on this, I know Monique and I had a conversation. I'm vividly remembering it now. There's a lot that's happened in between. Sorry. We don't outline the classrooms on here, but that's one of those understood things. So I'm sure Monique is watching. That using the classrooms, we needed to identify that. It doesn't mean that MCRPD has carte blanche that they can use any classroom they want, but putting that in there so that we can understand that classrooms may be used especially for kudos and for just for kids. So I'm not. I think potentially what we should do is look at a place to add that. So if you make the motion to approve, if you could consider a sidebar with adding in classrooms, and then I will have it fixed.
Meaning like a particular classroom number, or classrooms?
For instance, just for kids and kudos, kudos is part of MCRPD, and kudos uses our classrooms. And so we want to make sure that we outline this in this joint use agreement because they are using our classrooms. When we go on to a break in normal times, MCRPD hosts Just for Kids, and the Just for Kids uses our classrooms. Typically, it's been the portable classroom at Dana Gray, so it hasn't been within the building. but that's just something that we need to know.
I think there's an appendix that lists the Dana Gray classrooms, but maybe it's not there.
It does. It lists 76 and 77, but I think the concern was that Kudos also uses the inside classrooms.
So the approval would need to include the correction of the classrooms?
Of any other specific, yeah, just if it could include a very vague statement about including additional classrooms.
So I move to approve the joint use agreement with the additional revision or addition of the classrooms.
I'll second.
Okay, any public comment or discussion from the board?
There's no public comment.
Okay, then I'll turn it over to you, Anna.
All right. Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, so we're at 10.4, the reopening and return to school. So we'll make sure, I know that this is a possible public comment, so we'll open it up to the board and let them have some discussion. Then we'll call for any emails that have come in, and we'll delay and wait for those as we move through. Okay.
And President Kathy, Dr. Miller is with us in case someone had any questions for him. Thank you for coming, Dr. Miller.
I just want to bring up that it's almost 8 o'clock. Do we want to take a break or just keep going?
I'd like to keep going a little bit, but I don't know.
This will be a long one. So if we
Yeah.
do need a break, we might want to go ahead and do it. Do you want to take a 5-minute now? Okay. All right. So we'll take till 8:01. We'll come back and pick up where we were. That'll give some folks at home some time to write in if they want to. And again, 8:01, we'll come back to 10.4. I just want to remind the public that we're going to open this up to the board discussion and questioning, and then we'll turn it over to public comment. So we just don't think we're going to forget about you, but we do want to start our part of the discussion. So Becky, do you want to do any kind of intro or just open up for questions?
You know, what's difficult about this is that there is no one perfect answer for this. No one woke up in the morning and said, what can we do to get everybody anxiety riddled and filled with anger? That was not the goal of this. And I know people know that. So the goal right now is to try and figure out a way to bring our kids back gradually, to try and figure out a way to do that so that we can come back during this red tier time. The reason I had suggested coming back to our families on November 30th, because we sent out a letter on October 28th. At that point, it was a month. It would have given us a month. The idea was for us to be able to come back and to be with our kids, to kind of work out the kinks, to feel better about it, so that when we came back in January, that we could have a full, fresh start at that point as well. So that was the impetus behind it. I hear what people are saying about Thanksgiving, and I hear what people are saying about being fearful about transmitting COVID in our schools, especially after a social time. I get it, and that's up to you as a board. I don't think any of us are so attached to everything at this point that we are willing to draw lines in the sand within our community and have people feel like we're putting anybody in a corner. What I want everybody to hear is that we will get through this. At some point, we will be on the other side of this. And more so than anything, we have to be able to continue to work together. I don't want such harsh feelings to come through this that we won't be able to move forward. The good news is I do believe in our teaching staff, in our classified staff, in our parents, and our families, and our students. I know we can get through this. We have to find the best way to do that. And that best is going to be highly interpreted differently from person to person. So in moving forward, what we have for a reopening plan is that Redwood, Dana Gray in the middle school, and Alt Ed return to an AM, PM, 5-day-a-week plan. That came about because we fully recognize that we need to see our students every day. And there was really no way to do that other than limiting it to 2 hours. Also, there was a huge voice of concern that our staff had expressed about teaching online and in person at the same time. And quite truthfully, can you imagine being a kindergarten teacher and having 12 kids in front of you and 12 kids on the grid? So we got it. And so when that concern was expressed, we went back to the drawing board and said, okay, let's look at what other schools are doing. Let's look at what other districts are doing. Let's consider the size that we have and what can we do? And that's where this 5-day-a-week plan came from. So we're looking at that for, like I said, Redwood, Dana Gray, middle school, and Alt Ed. And then the high school is a kind of a different conundrum. The MOU that we agreed to in July only allows us to have our high school teachers, one teacher, be with at most 30 kids. And when you divide that in two, that's 2 groups of 15. So how do you do that when you teach 3 classes? And right now our high school teachers teach 4 if they have a virtual learning team. So let's just keep it to the core classes for a moment. So if they have 3, how do we do that? How do we keep their numbers at 30 without kids switching? So originally the plan in July was that the students would come on campus for 4 hours. They would come to their first period class, sit in that class, receive live instruction, and then they would be online with their other teachers from that class. So it would be kind of like an internet room. When that was discussed at greater length, that didn't seem to be highly desirable. So in going back to the drawing board, the high school had created some other plans to where the kids would be in their class and they would rotate through classes. I met with the leadership team and talked about some other ideas, interpretation of the cohorts and how many kids the high school could have was questioned because we both had different interpretations about that. But what we came away with was that we would have the high school kids come on for 1 period a day, and then we would have that 2-hour block for transportation. And no one liked the 2-hour block, but we couldn't figure out how to get kids home to be on time for their next class. We could look at maybe reducing that break a little bit, and the kids who ride the bus, we could, depending on how many kids that is in the A and B week, it may only be 10 or 13, that maybe those kids could stay on campus in an internet room if they required busing, so we condense some of that time. So I'm happy to re-explore that with the high school team. And we could also look at the high school plan, and if the 2 hour is so out of whack that it's really going to cost too much for families, then we could look at the original plan, which was that students go to their first period class, the A group, 1 week on, 1 week off, and they are there for live instruction, and then they remain there for their other classes. I'm happy to bring this back to the high school and say, let's look at this again. So there's that. As far as the return, the 5 of you have not had the opportunity to speak since October. And that's something that I don't know if our community quite understands. As a board, you can't talk to each other and call each other on the phone and say, hey, what do you think about this? Your only opportunity to speak to each other is right here, right now, in an open board meeting. So here you are. You are here right now in an open board meeting. Let's talk about the reopening plan, what you feel comfortable with, what you don't feel comfortable with. The start time is truly your decision. So if you want to start back on November 30th, December 7th, December 14th, January 5th, let me look at the calendar, January 11th, January 19th, that's fully up to you. My concern is that I'm concerned about the more prolonged wait that we add to this. I truly believe that if we can get kids back before the winter break, that is going to alleviate a lot of anxiety from people, and folks may not agree with me. What am I basing this on? I'm basing this on the internet rooms that we've opened. We have 6 of them. I'm basing this on our special ed teachers who are working with kids right now. I'm basing this on just watching how we've transitioned some kids back on campus. So we already have kids back on campus. We could stagger the start. We could start alternative education on November 30th because I spoke with one of their representatives today, and they're ready to start. And maybe the transition starts with alt ed on the 30th. On the following Monday, which is the 7th, we can bring back another group. The following Monday, we can bring back another group. After the break, we can bring back another group. If the board is not feeling comfortable with that, you have to have that discussion amongst yourselves. I truly believe that we can stay safe. I do understand people's nerves, and I don't know if nerves is the right, but their trepidation about social gatherings at Thanksgiving and the holidays and what that means to our COVID safety in our community. So I don't want to discount any of that. So I'm just going to let you go and see if you have questions for me or for Dr. Miller, and discuss what's in front of you. Diana.
Can I just start just to clarify, because it is tough because we get to kind of, we are virtual and it feels like we're in a box, but we really are in a box. So we don't have the total know-how of it's kind of like I'm comparing the reopening plan because it was even depicted on a COVID update that, we are working with the health officer, we meaning the school board, and we are working on the reopening plan. It's kind of like a site plan. It comes to us kind of, after it's been created at the site, and the bargaining units have looked at it. So we are kind of clueless on what each site's bell schedule looks like. I'll call it to be kind of more clear. So that's what's hard, is that I think we all have the same information, but we haven't been able to discuss it as a group. Well, I mean, we may not have all the same information, but I just wanted to clarify that the bell schedule per se, the reopening plan, that's something that's done. We're the what, and that's the how. So we don't dictate, but we can definitely have opinions on it, but we aren't at the table at that comes to us now.
So one of the things that we're looking at in working with our transportation schedule is a staggered start. And really looking at Redwood starting at 9, going from 9 to 11, and then Dana Gray and potentially the middle school going from 9:10 to 11:10, just to stagger that start so that our buses can get our kids to school on time. And then look from the other end, it means that Redwood would start from the second time from 1:20 to 3:20, and then Dana Gray and the middle school would potentially go between 1:30 and 3:30, or back it up by 10 minutes, and it's 1:10 to 3:10 and 1:20 to 3:20. Those are the minor details that we will need to work out as soon as we know how many people are coming back. And I can hear folks saying, well, you're not ready to return. Well, those are minor details that don't take a month to figure out. Those are really, that's a detail that is going to happen within a day, and then we get that out to families. The main thing before you right now is the day at which we return. I have been grappling with this because I'm trying to figure out what's best for our kids and our family. I will tell you very honestly, I am not as highly concerned about the education of our children right now, the formal academics. I just am not. From what I have been experiencing with our parents, with our families who I've been able to make minimal contact with, I'm concerned about our kids' social, emotional, mental health. I'm worried about their mental well-being. And what concerns me right now is that we are in a place where many of our kids, socially, this is a very pinnacle part of their development, and they are incredibly isolated. I recognize that there is a lot of anxiety about returning to school. I do believe we can do it safely. I do believe that we can enforce our protocols and make sure that our families remain safe. I do believe we can give everyone a choice. I understand that folks are highly elevated about this. I would like to see our kids come back to school. If the anxiety with the board and the public is such that we need to wait a week so that we have Thanksgiving and we wait an additional week, I believe that the data is that 80% of people who transmit COVID or contract COVID show symptoms between 2 to 4 days of transmission. Well, if we wait an additional week, that would allow that blooming to happen and not in our schools. I understand that. The timing of this is really about what's best for us and our community. And there is no way we are going to get a consensus on this. There is no way if you ask every student, every student's parent in Fort Bragg Unified on when the best timing would be, you're going to get different opinions on that. I don't want to discount anyone's opinion or fear. I don't want to discount the unknown feelings around COVID. I absolutely get this is not something we've ever done before. We are being asked to make the best decision with the information that we have. So
do we
yes,
have
Diana.
Any information? The surveys this is brought up in the board chat. I know you'll go back to the original at registration, but with it shifting to 50-50, I don't honestly know if it's because of the bell schedule or if it's because it's a safety issue. So, just to get a pulse of what people are feeling like now than what they're feeling like back when they registered. So
Diana, give me just a second. Site administrators, I know you're on the call. If you could pop up one by one and just tell us what your results are from your surveys right now so we know what the data reads. Hi, Lindy. We'll start with Redwood. How are your parent surveys looking?
It is looking about 50-50. We're still waiting on getting responses from a very few families, but it's just about down the middle.
Okay. Mr. Kale?
Ours is 54% yes to come back and 45 or so point something to not.
Okay. And do you both, Redwood and Dana Gray, what percentage of your families have completed the survey?
We've had 190 completed out of 385.
Okay. So you're a little more than half, and you're working on compiling that data with by calling families, I'm assuming?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Lindy, where are you with the data gathering?
We had 235 surveys completed, but we've been following up with phone calls, parent square messages. Teachers were doing some outreach over email today. So we've heard from all but I think we're down to 11 families that we still haven't heard from.
It's a great number. Mr. Cipollino, where are you at the middle school?
We are probably about 45, 55, sorry. We've had out of 365, 330 something families that we've contacted. So, and that's 45% on campus, 55% remote.
Okay. Connie, where are you?
We have about 46, 47 that want to remain distance learning and 32% that would be on campus. And we have 4 that are still unknown that we're trying to get a hold of.
Okay. Bruce and Jamie, what's the high school looking like?
We're about 350 responded out of 500 and about 30. About 35 to 40% that are gonna come.
And we have gosh, just totally lost my thought. Sorry. Our survey is open until tomorrow evening at midnight. So we have some time. So we haven't really reached out to anybody else who hasn't responded because our survey is still open.
Okay, thank you.
So should we ask Dr. if we have any questions for Dr. Miller, because is he just hanging out? He doesn't want to hear our whole.
Dr. Miller, you're muted, by the way. There you are. Hi, Dr. Miller.
Hi.
So if any of you have questions for Dr. Miller, I agree with Diana. Let's do that and honor his time so he can go to sleep.
So Dr. Miller, my name's Scott, board member for the district, and I've heard your name a lot. Nice to meet you finally. Can you just take a minute and kind of tell us who you are, what your role is, and if you do have any words of wisdom for us?
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this dialogue. And I want to say up front that I'm glad I'm not the one who's having to make this difficult decision. I'm glad it's you guys. And I know it's a really tough decision. I've been here in this community going on 4 years now. I live here in Little River. And I came up here specifically to work as a hospitalist in our hospital. And I am now the chief of the medical staff, which is an elected position within the medical staff. Mm-hmm. I am a hospitalist, meaning that I take care of hospitalized patients. I'm board certified in internal medicine and hospital medicine. And I have been also leading our hospital's response to COVID. I wear many hats, and another hat that I do wear is I am our infection control officer. And so when this whole COVID thing started, and really started in a real way, I, along with other leaders in the hospital, led our own response, figuring out what our policy should be. And of course, it was a very difficult time because we didn't know a whole lot about what we were dealing with. And the CDC and state guidelines were changing, literally some of them every 3 days. And that was just creating extra anxiety and fear. And at that time, back in March, we were projecting that by June, we would be so overwhelmed with cases that in our hospital, which is a 25-bed hospital, we would have somewhere between 60 and 80 patients with COVID. And you can see that would have been a complete disaster. Fortunately, shelter in place and and all of the efforts that we've made around the country to minimize the spread have worked. They have absolutely worked, and that projected disaster was avoided, which is wonderful for healthcare professionals like myself. However, it came at a great cost, and we all know what that cost is. That cost is in terms of things like the economy. It's in terms of things like concepts of personal freedom, etc. And so now we're trying to, as a society, wend our way back to some sort of sense of normalcy. As I was listening to the various administrators report out the results of the parent surveys, I was struck with the fact that it is really 50-50 down the line, 50% feeling more concerned about sort of safety versus 50% being more concerned about normalcy or returning to normalcy. And I was struck that, you know, that really came out very clearly nationally in this recent presidential election. It was very obvious that about half of the country, and this has nothing to do with whether or not people were Democratic or Republican, but that when you surveyed people on what the issues were for them, about half said that they were more concerned about COVID-19 and the pandemic, and about half said they were more concerned about trying to restart the economy and what the economy was doing. So it's not surprising to me that our own community is 50-50 about this. And I think that it really comes down to a very similar sort of thing. One of the challenges is that, and I get asked this a lot, is do I think it's safe to reopen the schools? Well, the question, that's a tough question because it depends on what you consider to be safe. If you believe that never ever having a single person come down with COVID is the only safety level that you're willing to accept, then the schools should remain closed indefinitely. On the other hand, if we're willing to accept the fact that there will be occasional people who will come to school who, you know, will later be found to be positive or, you know, can have the disease, if we're willing to accept that, then I do believe that reopening the schools is safe. I very strongly believe at this point that masks are absolutely the safest thing. I think that masks are even more important than the 6-foot distancing, which is kind of probably ultimately going to fall by the wayside to some extent. Hand washing is a very important second. So I have looked at your policies, your proposed policies, and I personally believe that if you are very stringent about everybody wearing a mask, and my understanding is that any student, especially for the youngsters who are unable to keep their mask on, are going to be not eliminated, but restricted. They're not going to be allowed to come back to school if they can't keep their mask on. So masking is the most important by far. And then strict hand washing, encouraging that kind of thing. Those two things are going to be what really protect your staff and your students. The way this is going to come into our community, and already is in the last, 4 to 6 weeks, I've been seeing little pop-ups here and there. And those little pop-ups in our community out here on the coast are almost all because of families getting together. And when you're together with loved ones, you're going to take your mask down. And people are traveling. People are going to see grandma. People are going to do that over Thanksgiving. They're going to do it over Christmas. And yes, that's when they're going to bring it back to their families. And I think it's unrealistic to expect us as social beings not to go visit our loved ones. And when we go visit our loved ones, it's just unrealistic to think that people are going to keep their mask on when it's grandma and that kind of thing. So that is how it's going to come into our community. That's how it's already coming into our community. And when that happens, and a family has a little, if you want to call it, outbreak within the family, then if students if kids in that family are going to school, then that's going to be the time that, oh, gee, this particular family has a little outbreak and little Johnny was in the school, and now little Johnny is tested positive like everybody else in the family. Okay, we're going to have to look at that and see, were there any actual exposures? The fact that Johnny went to school and is infected doesn't mean that other kids are automatically exposed. It does not mean that teachers are automatically exposed. We have to keep in mind that exposure is a very strict definition that is very specifically within 6 feet for 15 or greater minutes and not wearing a mask. So by that definition, if two people are together within 6 feet for 15 or greater minutes, and yet both were wearing a mask, that does not constitute an exposure. And the chance of contagion is very, very small. So I think that that's the real key element there. So when you reopen, and it doesn't matter if it's after Thanksgiving or after New Year's, there will be occasions when students and teachers test positive. That's going to happen. It's going to happen whether you reopen or not, by the way. I mean, even, because of the social dynamic I mentioned. But when they do test positive, you're going to have the additional challenge that not only did they test positive at home, but they also had been in the classroom. And how do you deal with that? Well, I think there are very reasonable ways to deal with that. And I think that this plan looks at those. The last thing I just want to say is that I'm personally concerned in particular about the high school kids. They're at a time when this really important transition in their life to the next stage of their life. A lot of those kids are going to go on to college. And the question is, are they going to be prepared to do so? And the next, we're going to be dealing with this pandemic for at least, I would say, another 1.5 to 2 years before it finally starts to fade. And so our people's education going to be so hampered and crimped by these constrictions that they will have an extra challenge to overcome when they come back to go on to college or something. So anyway, these are just some of my opinions and thoughts, my observations. I have, as you all know, I've been doing a lot of presentations to the teachers. I've fielded a lot of questions. We've had some really good back and forth dialogue. And I'm basing a lot of what I just said on those presentations.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. So basically what's in front of you is we are in the red tier. We are allowed to reopen. What does that look like? What does that feel best for our kids and for our families? We had a lot of opinions tonight. Do we want to create a staggered start and separate the schools out? Do we want everybody coming back at the same time? Do you want it to be before the winter break in December? Do you want it to be in January? I'm leaving this in your capable hands. I will tell you that my recommendation is to return before the winter holiday, and that's only because I'm already seeing the anxiety right now about coming back. And I think if we can get our kids back and have everyone feel good about that, about them coming back, then when we go to break, everyone I believe will breathe a sigh of relief. And that's being totally 100% based on what we've done with our internet rooms. So, but I do understand that you're a board that has to listen to your constituents. And just because I want something doesn't mean that it's the right thing for all of you to do. I fully understand also that the high school is going into finals. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this. I will tell you that if I'm going to give you a recommendation, my recommendation at this point would be to really have this discussion with yourselves about what you feel good about and what makes the most sense, especially after the 1.5 hours or 1 hour and 15 minutes of public comment that we had. What does that feel like to all of you? What are the parts that are concerning you? So let's have that discussion so we can cut to the chase. Is there anything left for Dr. Miller?
Thank you. That was what I wanted to make sure we took care of first. So Diana?
This is tricky. I just wanted to ask, I had come across a Dr. Ashish Jha. He's the Dean of Brown University School of Public Health. And I was just curious, he was kind of laying out when the vaccine would be coming out. And I don't know if you have any information on that, but was just saying the first batch would be for healthcare workers and first responders, maybe December, January, if they get the emergency release. And then second would be essential workers, which I don't know what the FDA considers essential workers for February, March. And then the broader population, April, May, June, but it has to be in 2 doses. So what do you know about that?
So there are some real challenges with vaccines for this, and it is really very unclear whether vaccination is going to play any sort of important role in dealing with this pandemic. I know that politically everybody is excited about the vaccine and wanting to have a vaccine as quickly as possible. But there are some real challenges. Coronaviruses come through our community every winter, and so we're very familiar with coronaviruses. They cause the common cold. This virus, SARS-2, which causes COVID-19, is only novel in the sense of how it affects our body. It is not novel in the way it is transmitted, and it is not novel in the way our immune system develops antibodies and immunity. And so the reason why that's important is because we know that and expect with this vaccine that the immunity will probably be somewhere on the order of 20 to 30% of the people who get the vaccine will develop antibodies that bestow immunity, which is pretty low. Usually with the flu shot, for example, every year, we expect about 60% immunity. It's not 100%, never has been. This is going to be about half that. And that immunity is only going to last about 3 months. This is the reason for the booster in about 3 months. And so that's kind of, not as exciting as it ought to be. Another challenge with getting the vaccine out to everybody is that it has to be kept, my understanding, at minus 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Otherwise, it degrades. Well, that, I believe, requires dry ice. Refrigerators are not at that, that we normally keep vaccines at, are not at that temperature. And so it's going to be kind of challenging to keep this vaccine viable when we give it to people. So I think that there's going to be some real huge challenges with the vaccine. I think it's great that we're going to have it. I'm not worried about it causing negative problems. I'm not afraid of the vaccine, but I don't think it's going to be the big answer that we're all looking for. I think that the good news is that if this outbreak acts like other outbreaks, such as the 1918 influenza and SARS-1, which was in 2003, we're going to be dealing with this for a total of about 2 to 3 years at the most, and that's going to be what it ends up with.
Hi, I have a question about the therapeutic they're talking about getting an emergency authorization for the monoclonal antibodies. What are your thoughts on that?
So there's a lot of work being done with antibodies that are being identified in patients who are very, very sick and then survive and make a good recovery. And of course, that's exciting. So we want to see, well, gee, what did their immune system do that was beneficial, and can we replicate it? So yes, I think that, and we're already using plasma from patients who recuperated from and did well with this infection, and those are being given to patients who are sick. And the recombinant antibodies that you're talking about then are the same antibodies, but we're simply making them in a test tube. And so it's easier to get them and perhaps safer to give them to other patients. So yes, I think that will be helpful. But primarily, I believe that that's going to be something that we're going to be giving to patients who are, say, intubated in ICUs. It's not going to be something that we're going to be given to the general public, I don't think.
Okay, thank you. I did hear that specifically the monoclonal antibodies, that they were seeing that the good results were in people that were not really sick yet, that they did it early on. And those are the people that responded well. They didn't feel like it was as beneficial to people that were severely sick if we waited that long.
That's true. But it's the cost-benefit ratio there. It's an extremely expensive therapy. And so who's going to pay for that for people who are not that sick? Remember, if you look at who gets infected, 80% of people who become infected either never get sick or only have minor symptoms and don't even know they're infected. 80%. 20% of people get sick enough to seek health care. About a third of the 20% get sick enough to be hospitalized. The fatality rate of this is only about 2 to 4%, depending on how you look at it. In some parts of the world, it's higher, 6%. But when you're thinking about something that 80% of people who get it aren't even going to know they got it because maybe they have a sniffle or something. Looking at that percentage and then saying, okay, how much should we spend on people, in terms of the vaccine, et cetera? It's a tough challenge to have that cost-benefit ratio.
Thank you.
So in terms of coming back and picking a day to come back, clearly a vaccine is not going to weigh into our decision on that. What you need to look at as a board is where we are in the calendar, what we believe is best for our kids, and how we make that happen. I have heard Dr. Miller speak to our sites. He has fielded a great many questions. I appreciate his candor. I appreciate his honesty. He has sold me on masking. When we started this back in July and I asked him to speak to our staff for the first time, I learned more from him very quickly than I had from reading different material, because it's trying to figure out and judge what you trust, what you don't trust. I also just want to publicly acknowledge Dr. Miller that he's not just talking about something in theory. He has been the doctor with many of the COVID patients in our hospital. He has been with them. He has helped treated them. Am I out of line to say that, Dr. Miller? I hope not.
No, when the outbreak occurred at Sherwood Oaks, we had a total of 19 of those, some 28 people in our hospital, and I personally took care of about 14 of those. I'm very proud that those people, many of whom were elderly and quite frail, and some had lung disease, they did very well, and I think that really helped me personally understand this disease a lot better. And also, I just want to acknowledge that, when I went into the first room of the first COVID patient that I took care of, I was scared. Yeah, I was nervous. I was like, wow, this is it for real. This is the real thing. I'm, here I am wearing my PPE and I'm going in but I can tell you that by about the third day, it was like, okay, this isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. It's not such a big deal. But there is that initial fear, and I understand that and respect that.
So thank you, Dr. Miller. So when we're looking at this, we have to really look at the big picture. If we want to look at this as a site-by-site basis and pick dates that are best for each of the sites, we can do that. If you want to just do a whole all or nothing, we're all going back, we can do that. I do want to thank Alta Ed for reaching out to me today and saying, look, we're ready. So I want to acknowledge that as well. We have kiddos who need us. Everyone knows that. Everyone acknowledges it. Not one person denies that sheer fact. We have our kiddos who need us. And you've heard many different accounts from parents all over the map today going one way or the other, and really just focusing in on children. All of our kids need something differently, and we understand that. But for right now, we are the school district that gets to address all the needs of this eclectic community family that we have. And we have to figure out a way to do it so that our staff feel safe and secure, so that our families are feeling supported. And the hard part is, I'm telling you right now, there is nothing we're going to do to make everybody happy. It's not going to happen. And the hard part about our plan, I've spoken to many parents. The hard part about our plan is that it only allows for our K-8 to come back for 2 hours. And I had a mom say to me, Becky, I don't just work for 2 hours. I understand. I understand. And the hard part about our high school kids is another parent said, Becky, why am I going to drive from Simpson Lane into Dana Street for 80 minutes? Tell me why. And I said, well, because it gives your kid a chance to be with their teacher. And I get it. It's hard. But here's what I need to remind everyone. This is not our forever. I am not asking you to approve a reopening plan for the next 10 years. I am not asking you to approve a reopening plan for the next 10 weeks. I know that I need to get back in with the bargaining units and sit down and talk about a tiered plan. Here's what orange is going to look like. Here's what yellow is going to look like, so that everyone has a very clear vision of how we're going to come back. So I know that I need to do that. And I'm working with our bargaining units to make that happen. So for right now, what I need you to hear me say is that this is not our forever plan. Is this the right plan? I will say this is our right now plan. This is not something that I hope to have in place come April. And hope is not a great strategy. Please understand. Here's where we are though. Do we want to bring kids back, and when? I think everybody will say, yes, we want to bring kids back. So now the question becomes the when. And if you don't want to bring kids back, now would be the time to say that too. I will tell you. Go ahead. Sorry.
We haven't been able to talk. So I just want to make one more time. If anybody has any questions for Dr. Miller, we'll let him go. If there isn't any.
Or Dr. Miller, you're welcome to stay on board, but if you need to go.
No, I don't need to go anywhere. I'll hang out in the background in case any questions pop up.
I have a question. I'm sorry. So testing. So is there an update on that? Because people are worried.
So Dr. Miller, please allow me to answer that a little bit, only because Wendy and I met with Lucretia Renteria today. And folks are under the impression that when UCSF backs out of our surveillance testing, that our employees will not be able to be tested. That's incorrect. We spoke with the clinic today, and here's how it's going to work. Yes, today was the last day for surveillance testing for the UCSF lab. Next week, Lucretia has told us that there are 3 different labs, but one of them is going to be the one. Is that your understanding, Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Our employees will continue to have the ability to test. And I just want to let everybody know that we started testing our employees 7 weeks ago. This is week 7 of an 8-week cycle. We have all of our employees in an 8-week cycle because the guidance is that all of our employees, 100% of our employees, have to have the ability to test within every 2 months. So I took all of our employees and I put them in 8 groups. I post that every week, and everyone gets the notice from Anna that it's your turn to test. Testing is not mandatory, but having a testing plan is mandatory. So we cannot force our employees to test. We have roughly 30 to 32 people in each group. And every week, folks are able to go on company time to the clinic, drive in their car, and get their nose swabbed. We tried to make it as easy as possible for our employees. We sent out a Google form, and if they gave us their information and they gave us permission to share their information, then I shared that with the clinic. So literally all you have to do is drive up, tell them you're with the school district, they take your name, and then you get swabbed, and then off you go. So that will continue. Next week, if there is a charge for testing, thank you to the Mendocino Lodging Association, because they are using their lodging tax to pay for Mendocino Unified School District employees and Fort Bragg Unified School District employees for all their testing. When that runs out, then Fort Bragg Unified will be paying for all of our employee testing. So surveillance testing will continue for Fort Bragg Unified employees through June 11th.
Do we have to pay whether the employee gets tested? Or do we have to pay for, it's just who actually goes?
It's for the number of actual tests. What's difficult is, I want to stress to everybody that we've had it available. We've had 30 to 32 people a week, and not everybody has taken advantage of that. So we have had this, again, this is week 7 of an 8-week cycle. I am a walker, so I get to go next Thursday. And then the cycle will begin again with the A group after Thanksgiving.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up since Dr. Miller said he doesn't mind staying for a little bit. I will open it up to the board to have a discussion. We'll give us a few minutes and then I'll ask for any more public comment from Anna, but I really do want to allow the board to start the discussion since we have to make a decision. Mary?
Okay. I want to let you know too, my internet's getting wonky and some of you are popping in and out, but I can hear you. But if I disappear, I'll get in on my phone. First, I wanted to thank you, Becky, for saying that you actually wrote in a letter to us also that, as we're trying to figure out how to get through this, that it's not our forever. And that, acknowledging that both sides are very valid, wanting to come back now, wanting to come back after January, not wanting to come back at all. It's all, everybody's feelings are very valid. For myself, I feel like we need to balance the risk versus advantages. My big concern is the holidays and the gatherings that we all know are going to occur. I mean, that's going to happen. Anyway, I know it'll happen. And I'm also concerned about the kids. So if we go back on the 30th, the kids that stay remote, which looks like it's at least 50% in all schools, and some of them are up to 60, 65%. They're going to have different teachers, possibly, maybe. And the kids that come back will have possibly different teachers. Obviously, a number of them will.
I don't know if it's as high as you're asking. I don't know if that's as high as and Mr. Kale and Lundy, I know you guys don't have time, you haven't had time to put all of this together, but Mr. Kale, did you have time to number crunch today?
Oh, I'm here. Hi, I'm in the corner. Yes, I did. What's interesting is, so we came up with this kind of interesting plan, is since it is half and half, to have each of our teachers do a here version and an away version, with each class doing that, because you could divide each class in half. So in the end, in 3rd grade, if we stay the course, we're going to have to move 4 kids out of 100 and whatever. 4th and 5th are a little bit different because we have teachers that have requested fully remote. We're going to have to move more kids. I don't know exactly the 5th grade numbers, but I know the 4th grade numbers, we're looking at moving 22 kids to different teachers. And where those 22 come from are 22 families that are in the classes of the teachers that want to remain remote and they want to come back.
And let me just preface this, the word want. Okay. We have a medical note from them. It's not, hey, I want a remote, can I get one? So we have a medical note from their provider that someone either immediately in their family or them are at greater risk. So it's not just people get an opinion and get to do it. So I just want to clarify that, Mr. Kale, so that our parents don't think that.
And it's real concerns. I mean, and you guys are analyzing it perfectly. It's real concerns on all sides. But so, the numbers aren't as great as I thought they would be. And I know in talking with parents, every single parent, their concern to me again and again is, do I get to keep the same teacher? Do I? Some won't. And it's just a reality. So, but is that as bad as I think? No. I think that, 4 kids in the 3rd grade, that's pretty cool, actually. So.
Oops, Mary just froze. Can I just clarify? So only the kids, no one that's distant learning is going to have to switch a distant learning teacher. They're going to stick. So if you're distant learning and you want to be distant learning, your teacher probably won't change. This is just about kids having to, that want to go back on campus. Or you see what I'm saying?
I do. So if you have a kid that wants to come back on campus and you have a teacher that wants or is interested in remaining remote, they have to move to another class, and we have to move another kid into that distance only class.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a downside. There'll be kids that are moved for no reason, real. You know what I mean? Like I'll lose my teacher. So yeah, there is a downside.
So Mary, sorry you froze and then Diana jumped in. So
Can you guys hear me?
yes. But you were frozen a minute ago.
Now? Oh, you can, because I only heard bits and pieces of what Rick said. Now I'm worried that I'm going to be losing my internet altogether at a crucial time. If I do, I'll get in on my phone if I can. So I didn't hear everything you said, Rick. I'm sorry. So I'll just finish really quickly. I'm concerned. Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Kate, because I couldn't hear that. Sorry. That was one of my concerns. The other concern, close all my tabs. Oh, sorry. Okay. Does that help? Oh, now you're all gone. Can any of you hear me? Oh, God. Rick can hear me.
Mary, we can hear you. Mary, we can hear you. Just go ahead and keep talking.
Okay.
I tried.
Okay, great. I'm going to finish, and then you text me if you don't hear me anymore, or I'll say bye-bye. Anyway, back to it. I'm just concerned about the holidays. Is my big concern, and I am here in Texas, and my older grandkids. There are schools, a bunch of schools here because of the surge. They've been open in hybrid, and now a bunch of them are closing because of cases popping up. I just want us to come back. I think January sounds great. We get past the holidays when people are fairly healthy and feeling more confident across the board. So that is where I am. So I'll stop because I'm afraid you're going to lose me again.
Okay. So Mary, I think is, all right. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions before I see if there's public comment?
So, I have lots of lots of information. So once you do public comment, you're thinking our discussion's over?
No. I just want to make sure we are doing our meeting in public, and I just want to make sure that we try to balance between, but no, we're not done till we say we're done and there's a motion.
Right. I just the research that I have been looking at, and it's been all school, because headlines are more about adults and gatherings that people are unmasked, and it's trying to get, a lot of states aren't abiding by a mask. They don't have mask mandates. Right now, the uptick in the states, they're all areas that don't have mask mandates. So we've gone through a lot of holidays during the purple, and our community is really good about masking. Like Ventura County Schools, there are 140,000 in their district, and they did have 36 kids test positive. But this is considered community acquired, not exposure at schools, because they're masked. So for me, if you don't believe in the masking, then we'll never open. And that's a differentiation. I think a positive doesn't mean an outbreak. An outbreak is in mass gatherings and eating, and that's usually in a daycare setting. But if you're going to do your essential business and you're masked, I don't know how. Like I said, like Dr. Miller had stated. I mean, it's a good. I mean, there's going to be community acquired positive, but I don't. And that's where I was getting at in my report, that the state president of the school board was stating from that it's not, they're finding that this was from the California Department of Public Health, that the openings aren't increasing the COVID rates. And then from the public health, that's Dr. Pon, who I've talked about before, that says what's really interesting is the normal flu, it is passed through kids like wildfire. And how many flu seasons have the normal flu we've gone through? That actually passes between kids like wildfire. And but with COVID, for whatever reason, and this is from our epidemiologist that was appointed by Newsom, and she was an infectious physician, a pediatrician infectious physician before she was appointed for Alameda County Public Health. So you can look her up, and she states that for whatever reason, this coronavirus isn't passed like that within children. So if adults are masked, it's not, it's if someone is, you have to, everyone, I've treated that everyone has it. So you have to mask and social distance. So, and I think I had talked about, basically who's left in full distant learning through January are 17 counties. And these counties are the size of, are huge. Like LA Unified is 596,000 in their district. San Francisco district is 61,000. Oakland is 49,000. We're 1,800. Our county is 13,000. So we're definitely not in that lower spectrum where it's really urban. And going back to where I found the Dr. Jha information, he was talking about how the vaccine's going to get rolled out. And I'll quote, he is the director of Harvard Global Health Institute and now the dean of Brown University Public Health. And he's he's conservative. He says, you have to mask. It's going to be, there is going to be an uptick. You can look him up. And he has a little 15-minute blurb that's called COVID, What Comes Next? And he's easy to follow as well. But he is quoted here. He says, "There's no doubt in my mind that schools need to be bolder when they're being where they're being. There is a large mental health cost to children, and we know this is going to be very substantially widen the achievement gap between wealthier and white kids and poorer students of color. The effect is going to be felt for a very long time. You always have to weigh those very large costs against the cost of going back to in-person education. Obviously, it's going back to in-person education was going to lead to a lot of infection and death. You'd say no, you'd say, okay, there's no costs we can bear. But districts that are being too cautious and are doing enormous harm to children and families in their communities. And this is the Dr. Ashish K. Jha, and he spells his last name J-H-A. So I just thought that was, if you listen to his little blurbs, you think, gosh, there's no way. Who is this guy? Like, who would say this? Who would recommend this? And so I always, personally treat a doctor. We've all been to a dermatologist that goes and says, no, you look good, but you didn't even, put a gown on. You're good. All your spots look great. Then you go to the next guy and he's just cutting everything that you have, on your body. And that's where it's hard to balance a doctor's perspective, but you have to value someone that's practicing and isn't just into the science of it or the data on paper. And I also wanted to share, the United States flu season occurs in the fall and winter. While influenza viruses circulate year-round, most of the time flu activity peaks between December and February. That activity can last as late as May. So if you go on the CDC influenza season, you can actually, it's kind of cool. Maybe after all this, I'll go into education or maybe into medical because they have the same kind of indicators as COVID, where it's week to week. And right now we can go on to this influenza flu season and see where we're at. And they're saying that the laboratory confirmed flu activity is low at this time, like today. And you can also see tons of graphs. You can see the age group that's getting hit by week. I mean, you can, week 43, you can see how many specimens were provided and what's going on. So when you look at another graph, which I don't even know if you could see, it lays out that February has 15 flu seasons, December 7, January 6, and March is 6. In October and November, it's barely over 1. I don't know if you can see this, probably not. But see that big spike? That's February. This is the normal flu season. And that's valuable information to know that the flu season it's going from October to May, but really a big peak in February. And there's a vaccine for this. So I just want to say that Sonoma County did a health summit, and they're really concerned about the mental health of children and that it's going to take, years to assist them. And they're in a little bit harder community just because they're also dealing with the ramifications of the fires and the post-traumatic stress from that. And I also wanted to put out that I would check in with the State Board of Education, Darling Hammond. She's her data is coming from, the state, the best of the state. And the governor's sent back his children, Sacramento Country Day School. And I think that our state indicators are pretty conservative. And I think that the scientists that are working for our state, I think, when they close schools during flu, if they're really worried about, and they still could, and we could go back into purple, while we're trying to get ready. But I just wanted to let you know that I'm looking at sources and experts within our state and trying not to, because the headlines are trying to help the states that don't have the mask mandates and people that don't believe that the virus is real. Because I believe the virus is very real. And it's a little alarming to think that we're going to be dealing with this for a couple of years. But I just wanted to share some of the information that I've found from our leaders that are in our state that are trying to keep us safe.
Thank you, Diana. I'll jump in, and mine will be much less scientific and more just my observation and opinion. I think we need to open schools as soon as safely possible. I truly believe that there are children at home that are really, really struggling. And especially with our district being 80% socioeconomically disadvantaged, we know that there are lots of things that they are not getting at home. and the school is the safest place. And I'm really worried about kids that are at home, either alone or watching their parents fight, or just the things that happen at home. And I don't want to, with saying that, I don't want anybody to think I'm devaluing the letters and the feelings and how everybody's feeling. But I will also say on the flip side of that, that because of the feelings that we're hearing about, I am a little worried that if we approve an opening plan when people are not feeling safe, that the stress of the adults on campus it'll bleed right for, I can't think, it's getting late and the kids are going to feel it. So I'll use myself as an example. If I didn't feel safe and I'm bringing my kids in for the first day and a kid takes the mask off and I emotionally respond, and that's not going to be a good situation. So I am really torn right now because, ask me 3 or 4 days ago, I was feeling pretty confident in, where I sat, but I'm worried at how everybody's feelings are going to essentially affect the children. And so I'll be interested to hear some more from other people, but I also, it's a small community, and when I hear people talk that, they don't want to go to school or they don't want to send their children back to school, but yet, that there's other things in their lives that could be exposure pockets. And so that's hard for me to take too, because I feel that if you're going to live it, you got to live it. If you're not, be safe and, deal with any possible consequences. But, this is a tough, and we're not going to I don't even think we're going to make half the people happy like these statistics are saying. And the other thing I will say, just thinking about that, is, I think somebody else brought this up. I would be interested in a follow-up question on the survey to say, if the schedule was different, would you have a different answer? Because we talked about that at the board chat, that there's a lot of families that are not going to send their kids back to school, not because of because of COVID, but because that schedule, they've gotten in a routine with their families, and they aren't going to change everything for this very small window of in-person instruction. So I kind of was all over the place, but there's my 2 cents for now. So let's go around to all the board members, and then let's get public comment, because I don't want the public to think we're going to. So does anybody else?
Can I just do before I forget, I had an elementary school teacher reach out to me, and she's been getting a lot, I don't know if just from her classroom, but that it's more about safety, for elementary. So I don't know if it'd be different for high school, and that might've just been her classroom. I don't know if that's for the whole elementary, but I just wanted to throw that out since you kind of asked that.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board before we go to public comment?
Yeah, after listening to all this, there's lots to take in, but I kept notes on all the letters we got, which were 21. We had 2 pretty much no's and 19 yes. And most of those yeses were a January start, including the large group of educators. So that's kind of where I'm heading, at a little bit of a later start date. I also think the people I've talked to don't like the small window of time that their students would be in class. So if we were to push it out into a January start, that revamping the schedule so kids would have a larger block of time with in-person contact with a teacher. So to quote Kathy, that's how I feel about it right now.
So obviously been thinking a lot about this, and appreciate everyone reaching out. And I want to know that all the people that didn't reach out, we're making this decision for you too. And it's my position that we need to get these kids back in school as quickly as possible. I don't think January is going to be any better. I think it's going to be deeper in the winter. I don't think that waiting is going to make it any less scary. You know, I've been working since March 15th, working with essential travelers, working with people from all over the country, and it's scary. Responsible for over 40 employees who are leaving their homes to come to work because they have to. And we've managed to do it safely and have a little fun in the meantime. I don't like the high school plan at all, but it's a place to start. And I just, you know, I'm not a health expert. I'm not an educator. I know some other board members are educators. So I depend on the systems that have been put in place, the guidances that have been put in place. And both of those say that we are able to open schools and we can do it now, as long as we follow guidelines and procedures and policies. And from what I understand, there's an MOU in place and safety protocols in place to make sure that all of that is followed. I know that there are a lot of parents that, you know, it's going to interrupt their lives, and great that they have a choice to keep their kids home. I know there are a lot of staff that will have to go back. But if it's a medical issue, I understand that they can get a note and be virtual. And it's you know, I'm hoping that the emotion and the fear that our professionals feel on that first day or that first week back, they're professionals and they'll be able to do their job in a way where it won't affect the kids. But this is new for everybody, and it's going to be scary and it's going to be uncomfortable. But it's a place to start. And you know, let's open up for public comment, but I say that sooner the better.
Okay. Anna, are they uploaded in the document or do you have them?
I have them and they are uploaded in the document. Do you want me to read them? They're not long.
Okay, go ahead then.
Okay. So the first one is from Cindy Whitlock, and she just has a question. What do today's county dashboard numbers do to the recommendation to open? Cindy. The next one is from Katie Turner-Carr, and she says, dear school board members, thank you. I know you have already read one letter comment of mine during this meeting. I saw today's Mendo County dashboard. Today's dashboard shows our positive case numbers of 8.86, well into the purple range, but our tier still says 2. Our daily positive cases have been trending upwards all week, with most other districts in the county staying mostly remote or fully remote until mid-January. Why are you even looking at coming back? These are numbers that could reflect Halloween exposures. Thanksgiving and Christmas is just going to be more intense. Most other Mendocino County districts are opting for very partial reopening or not even thinking about it until mid-January. I would hope that our district would act with the utmost caution and push this reopening conversation until mid-January. Thank you, Katie Carr. And then one more from Tina Rose. I feel it should be stated that the survey won't portray a true indication of what parents want. If there was a better proposal put forth, you may have more people that are wanting to return. Every proposal for every site is not near a normal day or even close to what the current scheduled day is. The survey response is a good indication of how each of those site proposals are not ideal for the parents and student groups. You would probably get a better idea if there was a better day laid out for the choice. I feel the MOU needs to be returned and reworked for a day that is filled with greater in-person instruction. Thank you, Tina. That's it.
So Becky, do you want to reiterate the 2-week to address the question about today's dashboard, or do you think
so? Wendy and I met with Lucretia Renteria and Tabitha Miller today, and we do our community meeting every Thursday. And we had asked about that. So right now, that dashboard is the daily read from the 7-day lag. So does that mean that we're returning into the purple? Not necessarily, because in order to return into the purple, we need to have a 7-day average of more than 7 tests. We can have a 1-day average that's more than 7, but let's say we have a 1-day average of 10, and then 3 days, we've had 1-day averages of 3, 3, and 4. When you add all those together and divide by the 7 for all those 7 days, it comes out to fewer than 7. So yes, we could have a one day spike, but we won't know what that means of purple or red until we get to the 7-day average part. My understanding from having that meeting with Lucretia, because she did speak with public health today, was that we are still in the red. But I'm taking that from that meeting that I had with Lucretia today to check in. And also, we did not have the county OES meeting on Wednesday, which was yesterday, because of Veterans Day. Now, just because if we have 1 week of purple doesn't mean that we go back into the purple tier either. So that's another thing to remember.
Becky, do you think they'll ever, or where have I seen it? Have they broken it out by zip code? Because I know that's been kind of a complaint because we only have one health officer, so we're kind of banded with Ukiah. So the uptick isn't in R95437, but do we know that for sure?
So my understanding from that is that the state has been considering that, but I have not seen any proof of that yet. So that's not something I can speak to right now.
But she did say our zip code number of active cases was not that spike, right?
Right. I think at this point, our zip code cases right now is at 5.
Yeah.
So I'm just I'm wondering what I'm hearing, and I really do appreciate the families. There's some really great letters. There's some really good information and perspective, to understand, where the staff's coming from, which it sounds like what's hard is, I have also been working since March, and I share office space with other people. And we kind of naturally, it's just my schedule because I get to leave at 2:15 so I can be home with my kids. So we naturally share space. And so I leave. And so we have, computers at our office, and I wipe everything down. And every morning I do the same ritual, myself. So we've been working since March, and we haven't had, it's working. So it's hard because I know when in March, going to work in an office setting, and I feel like I live there. I work in a law office where it's a funky building, and there's nothing special about it. But I remember not wanting to go to the store. I remember not wanting to go anywhere. And, we've adapted, and I feel way different than I did in March. And what I'm hearing from the staff, and I can hear it in their voice, I can see it in their eyes. They have been lucky, to be able to do their work from distant learning. A lot of hourly workers can't do distant, work because that's not their career choice. So I think that they're still in March, and I don't know how a person can get up to speed in a couple of weeks when they're still in March, and I know how I felt in March. So I'm just empathizing with that because we've all been there, and we all know what that feels like, and it feels really scary. But when you start breaking down the mechanics of the virus, and I didn't ask Dr. Miller, but I don't think children can get the vaccine. So there must be also, I don't know if it's because they haven't tested it or because kids aren't the spreaders of this. Anyway, I've taken it more of a scientific with practice and the leaders of our state, to understand. And I know the protocols at the grocery store, they've kind of trained us as a community, what we're doing. It feels like everywhere I enter, if I choose to enter, you wait at the door and you kind of see what's going on. And in the beginning, you did see scared little kids, trying to keep a mask on or looking strange or staring at you, in a strange way. But we've been adapting quite well, and you don't see any kids running around the store anymore. And I think it's because kids aren't going to the store, but most kids, I'm pretty impressed. I'll go to the bank and they're wearing a mask, but it sounds like I'm hearing more fear and anxiety from the elementary school teachers about masking, and if the kids are wearing masks appropriately. And I know adults, when you're out doing your essential work, adults don't wear their masks appropriately, but I can choose to walk down a different aisle, or I can choose to not go into a business that's not, masking. And so they're feeling like that's not an option for them with the younger kids. But I just want to acknowledge that, that the communities has kind of, in a lot of different areas, going to the dentist. I mean, I can imagine being a dentist because you don't have your mask on when they're working on your teeth. And I have total, the masking works, because if it didn't, we'd all be dead. I mean, if the masking didn't work and it was real, I'm not trying to it's just that there are people. I'll give you another personal experience. I had to do a diagnostic mammogram. I went to Advanced Health in Ukiah, not happy about having to go over the hill, but I had to have a 3D. I went in, and by the time I left that building, it was over 2 hours, and I had to deal with 7 adults just to get in and do my appointment. And in all of that, I'm in the waiting room, and there must have been 30 people. I don't know any of these people. I tried to find a spot that was kind of 6 feet away or situated, and I had to use the bathroom. No one cleaned the bathroom after I left. I'm thinking, oh gosh. And by the time I got out of there, this is the protocol of the hospital. And we're all masked. I think there would have been this was in September. I haven't heard of any outbreaks at Adventist Health. I'm just saying the protocols, if you're educated and you know what the protocols are, but I also think that there's maybe need to be screening education to know what to look for, because how do you know if your sore throat's, if it's the start of corona, or how do you know that, a parent hadn't administered some, Tylenol before the child got there. So I don't, how to address that. I'm kind of going on a tangent here. But going back to it, I think the main thing is I'd love to know what's in Corin's report to you. I don't think that's going to affect a start time, but we kind of want to know what he's recommending, because I know that there's some major issues with the cohort size at the high school. And I think an addendum is smart, like you stated earlier, to have the stages go along with the tiering.
So we're at a point where I think we can either move forward with a date. We could say we need more information with the update that you received today, and or a tiered system. We could, I guess that's the way I'm kind of feeling we could either pick a date and approve that based on the plans that are presented and the information we have, or if we needed to send something back to say we needed more information, either from our county health professionals or our sites if we wanted more data. So how are we feeling?
I think, we're always going to want the latest information, the latest numbers, what happened today, what's going to happen tomorrow. I think there's been countless conversations and endless hours spent figuring out a system that would work, figuring out a time frame that would work, or work as good as it can. There's a recommendation in front of us to open on November 30th. Certain schools open at certain times, other schools open at other times. It's not ideal. It's scary. But as I have done since I started this position, I rely on the professionals to recommend what they feel is best for our district, for our kids, for our staff. And even though there's a large group of people that don't feel that way, about this specific issue, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the recommendations as presented. And I can read more detail if you'd like.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table.
Oops, I can't. So your motion is to have the start date of November 30th, Scott?
Yes.
With, okay.
I'm just looking at the agenda item. The recommendation, Superintendent Walker recommends trustees continue discussion and consider a proposal of reopening schools in a hybrid manner that follows the PHO's guidelines commencing on November 30th. So I am making a motion to adopt the proposal of reopening schools in a hybrid manner that follows the PHO's guidelines commencing on November 30th, 2020.
And so I feel like there's still some strings. I still feel like there's still some issues that we need to kind of flesh out. And I just don't know, how we're going to get that information. Because I really like to know because right now we still have some information we need. So Becky, how are you feeling for time in the sense that I'd like you to be able to read Corin's information. I'd like to know if an addendum can be created. Are we able to, not that I don't want to delay this further really, but we could table it. I don't know. Do we have any time next week where we can, I don't know how we do this because we don't have all the information that we need.
Well, I think that if there's no second, then the motion dies and we can keep talking. But I think we just need to see if there's a second.
That's correct.
Or, well,
if it dies, then another motion can be made.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing, the hard part for me is I don't feel like the other issues are going to be addressed unless we get them addressed. I think that it's safe to start school November 30th, and that's not my trepidation. But I also want to make sure that people have discussions that they need to have, get more information so everyone's up to speed. I have no problem with the date, but I have a problem because I still have a lot of unanswered questions.
And so, Diana, what I'm hearing from you, your unanswered questions are in regards to Dr. Corin's guidance that he just released this evening,
right?
And that I haven't had a chance to look at,
right? I want to know what an addendum will look like, or kind of framework, or if that's something we can do. The cohort issue at the high school, and I feel like the elementary staff need more information, but I also feel like the high school there's issues, at that level, in the sense that it feels like those are big kids and they could go more, switch classes.
If the health officer gives us a more definition on a cohort, I would feel better at maybe even waiting on the high school plan, like you had mentioned about phasing in and do something different, so that I'm a little, I will tell you that listening to a student express their concern about the plan, that has like tenfold more, and to listen to her talk about trying to finish the semester and giving them more times to rearrange their job and, all these other things. I would be interested in knowing what the cohort is going to be, and if we could send the MOU back to get re-looked at, so that we could do a little bit better for kids and families before we open. And I want to get kids back as soon as possible. And that may be November 30th. If I'm a little uneasy about the pressure and the stress that's happening on staff, but I also am trying to weigh the needs of the children. And I'm struggling with this. I don't.
So if you want to, if you want me to come back with more information, you can hold a special board meeting, and you need 24 hours to post an agenda. So that's an option. You can say that you want to pick a date and then before that date happens, hold a special board meeting, and I bring you the answers to those questions. You've got a lot of things that we have to look at. If you all don't like the high school plan, know that you're not alone. I don't think very many people like the high school plan. And if your marching orders to me is to go back and to fix the high school plan, then I will go to Fort Bragg High School and say, let's go back to what we agreed upon in the summer, which is that the kids go to their first period class and they sit in that first period class, they get their live instruction, and then they're on campus from 9 to 1:30, and then they go home. And then the B group comes in, and then we can let the high school tease out the details of what that 4 hours will look like. Will it be rotating the classes every week? Is it going to be A-B days like we originally had envisioned, AABB? Is it how we do it? So if you're telling me that you want the high school to be there from 9 to 1 or 9 to 1:30, that's easy. We are well within our right into the MOU to be able to make that happen. And I can go back to the high school and say, guess what? Let's bring a different plan, and let's figure out how to make this work. And we can stay within the MOU language, absolutely, and go on from there. And you would just need to pick a date that if you want this presented to you before we give it a green light, you would need to pick a date with at least 24 hours in advance so that we could provide a special board meeting notice.
So I also, because people don't like things shoved down their throat. Is a week, would that be enough time because there are some other issues that I have written down. Busing costs, but if you tighten up that high school, I don't know if that's going to change anything for cost really. What about health aides, and are they helping with the, what's going on with that, with the screening? Are we prepared for, if a teacher they could tell 4 glassy eyes, is there room for the kids? I just want to make sure the protocols are in check and everyone understands them.
So I hear that there are lots of things going on. If you don't want to do a November 30th date, well, then we move on to what you are feeling comfortable with. If you want to do a special board meeting and punt this down to next week to have that discussion on Monday or Tuesday, then we can do that as well. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get you. I can definitely read Dr. Corin's guidance for schools. I anticipate that there's not going to be much new stuff in there, but I don't know. I haven't read it yet, so I can have that prepared for you and have something for you tomorrow on that. As far as a return to school, we could do this gradually. Like I said, I appreciated Alt Ed that they approached me today and said, we're ready to begin November 30th. Maybe we approve Alt Ed going back on November 30th so they can see kids. They are our most fragile group. So I am well in support of allowing Alt Ed to spread their wings and fly. It's a much smaller school. It's a much smaller setting. They're in much more control of their smaller group because it is so tiny. So I'm happy to get that one off the board and to keep moving. And then with the other sites, we look at a date later next week if you want to hold a special, or if you want to just say, okay, let's gradually open Alt Ed, and then the other 3 sites will decide next week, or we'll decide now and we'll postpone it by a week, 2 weeks. It's up to you.
My feeling is that it sounds like there still needs to be some collaboration at the sites. And, there's no reason, why that's happened or not happened, but I'd like to give them more time, but I'd like to be able to have a report on protocols to make sure every staff knows what the expectations are.
I do want to, I think there does need to be some, but more discussion, but I'm worried that it's going to just bring up more confusion or questions. And I just do want to remind that this was agreed on in August. And I know that the pandemic is different in August than it is now, but it's kind of like we got to the deadline and now all these things are starting to fester up. So I don't want to send it back saying, oh, we need to, I guess it's a gentle balance because we are under a time crunch. We can't say on what's next Friday, the 20th. We can't say on the 20th, we're opening on the 30th and nobody know what to do. So
here's what I would suggest. We're getting into the weeds a little bit right now. And you guys are the what and the administration is the how. So what I would say at this point, if you're not feeling comfortable with the November 30th date, then give me a date. And the reason I'm going to say that to you very bluntly is because I don't know, number one, if we're ever going to make everyone happy. And well, let me reframe. I know we're not. Okay. If you don't feel comfortable doing a date right now and you would rather have a little bit more information, then let's decide that we're going to have a special board meeting next week. And then at that point, we'll come up with a firm time. So that's well within your right as a board.
I can't make a.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say, I can't make a motion, but if alt ed is ready to go, I mean, I feel kind of weird just putting that on them and not having more confirmation on that, but we'll trust that that was a good representation of the school. But, at least that would give us, we've got some kids in the seats and we can go from there. I mean, but go ahead, Mary.
My question was about that very thing. Is that something that can be done with the union for one site to go back? That's fine.
The memorandum of understanding with our bargaining groups was basically to be able to go back in person when we are, and I think I'm speaking out of turn here because we didn't specifically address it in the MOU. When you look at the MOU, there isn't a place with that, but when the state has allowed us to go back, we can go back. So the state has allowed us to go back. We are in the red tier. I was contacted by alt ed today. I did not call Connie on that. Connie, you knew that I was contacted, correct?
I knew right before this meeting started that you'd been contacted.
Okay. So that's
so I take back what I said then.
I didn't know way ahead of time. I just was told that the rep had talked to the other teachers and they were fine with it. And so I guess I do have questions about starting back if we are, whether we're in purple or not. But no, I didn't know way ahead of time. So.
Okay, so it looks like we're back to a date. So do we want to, so the motion was on the table to open on the 30th. We do not have a second. So we can either have a different motion or a motion to table or a motion to have special, a motion, we've got to.
I mean, I would like a motion for a special. I don't want to, I don't want to stretch it out too far because if people think that they're not still actively, because one day we're going to need to open. So to me, if you're preparing, you need to prepare now. But I also want people to make sure that they've gotten their what they need. Plus, I want to have some sort of addendum or something come back to us and a report on Cohen and the cohort issue. So I don't know. For staff, I need a recommendation from staff, when next week that's even feasible. And if it is, I mean, if it's not, then we're forced to pick a date.
I can have Dr. Corrin's report read and disseminated to all of you tomorrow morning. I can do it tonight.
But that won't help us on the addendum. Well, or will Yeah. So so we don't need to have you stay up till 3 in the morning tonight.
And you are speaking with the union on Monday, you said?
I'm speaking with the union on Monday, yes.
So what day could we do a special next week? What would work?
You could do it on Tuesday.
There's DLAC Tuesday. I don't know if that matters, but there's DLAC.
There's a Three Rivers board meeting too, but is there anything on the agenda, Becky, that you have to be there for?
I'm no.
Okay. So if I'm hearing correct, it would be a couple things. One is the cohort size. And then, because we just need to make sure that we're not just meeting to say we're meeting, but that there's something that we need to have before we make this decision. So, and I might have been trying to choose my words carefully, and that may have come off as being in the weeds, but that's not what I intended. It was, again, just trying to, so it's the cohort size that's coming from the health officer, and then
for the high school, I'm hearing that.
Right. And then also, I guess that would also, and I don't think you have to have it done to us in the morning. I think you just need it for Monday's meeting with the union, correct?
So here's where we're at. The K-8 plan of AM and PM, I don't see that changing much right now. I think that's a good place for us to start in the red tier, to have kids on campus for 2 hours. Right now it's looking at maybe half of our kids spread in half. and if it's not spread in half, then it's half of our kids. And so for the K-8 plan, I don't see that AM, PM changing too much right now. And I apologize to families who say that, that's 2 hours, that's really not feasible. I understand that. We've got to start somewhere. So for K-8, I don't see much changing happening in that right now. Do we want to give them a little bit of time because we're worried about Thanksgiving? No problem. Whatever feels comfortable to you, we can do. The high school plan, I've heard loud and clear. People are not really happy with the high school plan. Got it, understood. I will meet with Mr. Triplett and Mrs. Alexander tomorrow. I will meet with the union reps on Monday, and we will figure out how to do the high school plan differently. At the bare minimum, it can be the 4 hours, which is what we agreed to in July, which is students come to their first period class, they attend their first period class for live instruction, and then they're in that class for the remainder of the time until we get something different. And so if we don't get something different, then we'll go with that until the tiers change and until we can bring our union representation back together so that we can come up with an orange and a yellow plan. I have no problem taking our red tier, basing it completely on the MOU as it is written, and having our kids in there so that we can adjust things like that 2 hour gap so that kids can continue to work. I totally heard it. So in moving forward, how do you want to kind of get to a place where you feel comfortable making a decision? That's the next stop.
So do you think, because Mary brought up the question, can you have sites starting, like staggering different dates? So
lots of districts are doing that. But they're much larger districts. So they're bringing back their K2 first, or their K1 first, and then they're bringing in their, for us, if we wanted to stagger, we could do it by site, we could do it by grade level. The hard part is most of the districts who are staggering their start by grade level are much larger. Doesn't mean that we can't do it. What feels good to us? But typically the starts have been with the lower grades first, because in truth, they're the least at-risk group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for us, because of Redwood's physical plant, I can just hear and feel Redwood teachers summoning their vibes to me right now. Redwood's in a difficult position because of their physical plant. So we do have some things to work out there, but I'm confident we can work them out before any kind of start date begins. So, in truth, do you want to start it where you start with the bigger kids? That it's up to you. I would say at this point that we need to get to a spot where you feel comfortable as a board kind of ripping the Band-Aid off. And that's really what this is about, to be quite honest with you. And figuring out what feels good to you about a date. So I'm good with Alt Ed starting on November 30th. If you're not good with anybody starting on November 30th because of Thanksgiving and that makes you feel a little funky, then let's shoot for December 7th so that we can start before the break. That gives everybody that 7 days after Thanksgiving so that if there is a spike, folks stay home. I believe in the masking protocols. I think we can do this. That 1 week might give everybody a little bit of time to just breathe, or you might want to stagger it. So I know I'm giving you not a lot of options, or I'm giving you too many. But the bottom line is that I am hearing very clearly that folks are worried about Thanksgiving. So I would recommend that at this point to let everybody know that you are hearing them. Let's take November 30th off the table, and let's shoot for a December 7th date. Or anyway, so let's take November 30th off the table is what I'm saying, because the motion was made, it did not carry, so clearly that's not going to work.
Well, that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I just think that oftentimes after you can reflect and figure out really what needs to happen next, doesn't mean that that's off the table, but sometimes when people sleep on things and ask now, just to have their concerns. If we want to have a special meeting on Tuesday, November 17th, we can have a special meeting at 6:00 and just have this one thing on the agenda. And at that point, I can have a stronger recommendation to you. We can have numbers from Redwood and Dana Gray and middle school and high school as far as where we are. And I can present to you a better plan for the high school. Would that make you feel more solid about picking a date at that time?
It would me.
Me as well.
And Becky, we haven't this, I'm sorry, I don't have the background to make this decision, but because we're hitting close to 10 o'clock, could we add the action items, maybe get through a couple, I don't know how long, so I think most of them would be pretty quick. So we either need to decide if we're going to go past 10, or, we do have to make a motion to table that as well, but.
Do we just continue this meeting till Tuesday? At 6 o'clock?
That's what I'm asking. Is it
me? Actually, that's a really good idea. You could adjourn the meeting until Tuesday. Anna, I didn't hear you. Oh, okay.
Okay. Let me ask though, before we get further into the motion for that, do we have any more public comment this evening? Yes?
Yes, we did have one. Let me just go back into it. We may have two. Okay, so, sorry, I was in the wrong window. My computer is very slow today. Okay, we have three. First one is from Jersey Tager. Let me just pop it open. Sorry. Okay, Jersey says, if we were to wait until January to start and we went back into the purple, would students still be able to go back, or would they have to wait until Mendocino County was back in the red? Then we had Monique Wooden. You have classes to look at. Online classrooms have been going since August. 40 to 50 kids have been in school. The evidence speaks for itself. Look at those class statistics, no cases. And I believe there's one more. Melina, sorry. Oh, except there's no content to her email, except the heading is cohort size is 14, been the same for months. And that's all the public comment.
And I think what you're referring to with the high school cohort is because we're talking about switching classes. That's what you're specifically asking. And that's different from a K-8 size. So that's what you're looking for from Dr. Corin. So I can look at that tonight. So at this point, the question will be, do you want to adjourn this meeting till Tuesday? We could adjourn the meeting till Monday, but Monday's a little bit tight. I won't I won't have a chance to meet with our union folks.
So is this purely to get clarification on the high school? Is that what everyone's questions are?
My understanding is that you want to look at finding it. You want me to come back with Dr. Corin's recommendations as far as what
who's Dr. Corin?
He's our public health officer. Dr. Doohan, it used to be Dr. Doohan, now it's Dr. Corin.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so looking at the guidance that he sent out tonight, seeing if that alters any of what we're talking about, going back and looking at the high school plan to make sure that the 2-hour gap is gone, and at the bare minimum, we'll go back to the original MOU guidelines, which is just the 4 hours, and kids are in their first period class or a rotational class, it doesn't matter, but they're in that class for 4 hours from 9 to 1 or 1:30.
So
and then you will make a vote on Tuesday on the date to return.
So I'm hearing all of that relates to the high school. Is that, fellow board members, is that correct?
I can honestly tell you I'm not going to give you a different reopening plan for K-8.
So then I'll try again, and I'll say that I make a motion that we open K-8 and I'll do it on November 30th.
Do we have a second? Okay, we're at 9:52. So if we don't have a second, I think it might be time to make a motion to continue this meeting on Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
I move that we adjourned for tonight and reopen on Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
November 17th.
Yes, November 17th.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Is this a roll, Anna?
Yep. Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Matson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
No.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes. Okay, so we are going to adjourn into closed session. If we have anything to report out, we will do that at the beginning, so nobody has to stay and wait. Can I get away with that, Wendy? Doing it on Tuesday? Okay. Just so nobody would have to wait around if we were actually in person. So we'll report out on Tuesday if there's any action, which there is, but okay. Again, thank you to the people that hung in there with us tonight, both on the Google Meet and on YouTube. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nate. So, Anna, we can go back into our closed session meet.
I suggest that we open a new meeting in Meets. I'll send you all an invite real quick.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.